Chapter 789. In order to get Lin Feng to agree with her, Lin Wenwen immediately thought of using the thing that Lin Feng wanted to find to attract him. The wall of the base was still under construction, and Lin Feng had been collecting the cement mixture. So, it would be easier to convince him with this reason, because this was her brother, and she knew him well. Sure enough, upon hearing Lin Wenwen's words, Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he agreed readily. Really? Okay, let's go this way. Lin Wenwen secretly heaved a sigh of relief. But what happened to you just now? Lin Feng pointed at the red claw mark on her face and asked curiously. She slapped herself and grabbed his nose to cry. He was scared to death, okay. Lin Wenwen was stunned, and then she turned her head to see everyone looking at her as if she was crazy. She could only smile awkwardly and say, "No, nothing. I don't know why I thought of something bad just now. My brain twitched, and I didn't react in time." Ha! Ha! Everyone had a look of confusion on their faces. Lin Wenwen tried to fool everyone, but she was confused about what was going on. Perhaps everything that had happened to her before was fake? If it was fake, why did it feel so real? But if it was real, why did she return to the time before it happened? No matter how she thought about it, she still didn't quite understand the current situation. Maybe when she returned to the base, she could talk to Big Sister about it, or let Big Sister go to the park to see if there was really a metal vine. If there was, then what she saw and what happened before was real. If there wasn't, then she might be thinking too much, and maybe she was hallucinating. But unexpectedly, a few hours later, Lin Feng and the others actually found a cement factory in the town that Lin Wenwen had pointed out. There really was one. Lin Wenwen was speechless. This was really just an excuse she came up with in the morning. Originally, she wanted to come here in the afternoon, and if Lin Feng didn't find the cement factory, she would say that she might have remembered wrongly. But unexpectedly, after arriving here, they temporarily rested, and when Li Zheng led the team to search around, they actually found a small cement brick factory. On the other side, Lin Xiao still didn't know what Lin Wenwen had encountered this time. She only felt a strange feeling flash past her heart, and then there was nothing. I don't know how long Du Kuanxing and the survivors of the Black Dragon base can hold on. Lan Lu stood beside her, both of them looking into the distance. Worried? Then why didn't you bring your men to save the situation? Lin Xiao looked ahead and said with an indifferent expression. She felt that Du Kuanxing was not a simple person. After all, Du Kuanxing's management experience was much richer than that of Gao Haoyun, a selfish person who did not care about anything. Moreover, his reputation in the Black Dragon base was also higher. They had an underground base and hundreds of thousands of people. Moreover, most of the zombies had been brought over by Mo Yin, leaving only a small portion of the ordinary zombies. It shouldn't be too difficult to clean them up. After all, they still had a lot of ability users among them. The metahumans that Mo Yin killed were all targeted. They were not randomly killed. Therefore, he didn't kill many people, only a few hundred in total. Out of the total number of adepts in the base, they probably accounted for only 1/10 of them. Therefore, there is no need to worry about zombies, and the living place could be slowly moved up from underground. The only difficulty was finding food. Perhaps not long after, Du Kuanxing would also send people to other bases to exchange for some food. The possibility in China was not high, so the Ming tribe was closer and Sea City was further away, which could be her base. Anyway, as long as there was a possibility and there was hope, Du Kuanxing would not give up the Black Dragon base. Lin Xiao thought of this, and Lan Lu also thought of it. However, Lan Lu's words just now were obviously to tease her, so she casually retorted. Lin Xiao could not see through this man's thoughts, nor could she sense it. However, the other party's eyes told her that he seemed to have something to ask of her, as if he was plotting something. But why did the way he expressed it feel a little strange? Lin Xiao felt that it was better not to get too close to this person. It's too far, and we don't have enough manpower in the base. Lan Lu sighed and smiled. Me too, it's too far, and we don't have enough manpower. Lin Xiao shrugged and threw his words back. On this side, Lin Xiao and Lan Lu were testing each other, while on the other side, Wu Qingyue and the other two quickly rushed towards Mo Yan's location. The further they went, the clearer Wu Chengyue could feel the power of the lightning. Dozens of kilometers. In just a few minutes, Wu Chengyue and the other two saw the area that was constantly being bombarded by lightning. Roar! Sensing a powerful enemy approaching, the zombie kings around Mo Yin immediately roared and became alert. The female zombie quickly retreated. She did not want to be killed by a strong human. One of the 5-level second kings and 2-level first kings immediately flashed to the side of the female zombie, protecting her as they quickly left the area. The other zombies did not dare to face the 3 people head-on, so they all retreated to the side and watched. First, they wanted to see if these people could rush into Mo Yan's lightning area. Second, if these humans were injured in Mo Yan's lightning area, maybe they could go up and give them a few claw attacks. At this time, Mo Yan was kneeling on the ground, his head was tightly pressed on his knees, and his hands were curled up into a ball. Crack, rumble, bang bang, bang bang, bang bang, bang bang, bang bang dash. Lightning was falling everywhere around him, causing dust and stones to fly everywhere. He did not seem to notice the incoming enemies, and only curled up on the ground. Suddenly, he turned over and roared angrily as he rolled on the ground. Roar dash! There were all kinds of lightning falling from the sky. Some were very thin, enough to blow up a small stone. The thick ones were also very thick as a thigh, enough to split a tree or blow up a building. When they arrived at the lightning area, they found that it covered a large area. Sikong Chun and Gao Haoyun could not sense Mo Yan's location because of the magnetic field of the lightning area. The two looked at Wu Chengyue at the same time. Wu Chengyue looked at the flashing lightning in front of him, as well as the countless falling lightning. He reached out his hand and threw a lightning into the lightning area, then quietly waited for something. After a few seconds, Wu Chengyue's eyes lit up, and he reached out his hands towards the lightning area in front of him. Then they saw his hands shoot out a few lightning bolts into the lightning area, mixing with the big and small lightning rain. Sikong Chun and Gao Haoyun looked at him in confusion and quietly waited on the side. Chapter 790. Lan Lu seemed to be very interested in Lin Xiao and always talked to her. "Why are you here? I thought you would be very busy since the base has only been open for half a year." Lan Lu stood next to Lin Xiao and asked her with a smile. "Busy with what? What should be done has been done. Let the others handle the rest." Lin Xiao looked at him and said faintly. She didn't mention the purpose of her visit. On the other side, Lu Jinan said to Hong Yijin next to him, "I think some people came here just to hook up." His voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. After saying that, he glanced in Lin Xiao's direction meaningfully. Most of the people here were level 6 or 7. Which one of them didn't have sharp ears? Their hearing was at least 10 times better than a normal person's. Lin Xiao's hearing was the most sensitive among the people present. Naturally, he heard every single word. She could also hear the sarcasm in the words. Hong Yijia looked at Lu Jinan's gloomy face and then at Lin Xiao, who was being glanced at by Lu Jinan. He knew that Lu Jinan was very concerned about Lin Xiao poisoning Hu Zhiyong. Now that Hu Zhiyong died, Lu Jinan was even more concerned. He looked at the woman who pretended not to hear him and replied, "You can't say for sure. She came to help out of goodwill." Hong Yijia said as he waved his hand down the wall. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding metal wreckage rose to the top of the wall and then rapidly twisted into countless sharp shapes. Then it instantly shot out like a rain of metal arrows towards the tide of zombies that were surging up from below. Roar, 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 puff, puff, puff. Some of the zombies below had their heads pierced by finger-sized metal arrows. Then their bodies stiffened and they fell down. Lu Jinan said disdainfully, "Her ability is poison. What's the use against zombies? Do zombies fear poison?" Bang! Wei Haichao, who was next to him, once again threw out a handful of seeds from his hand, and then used his special ability to hasten the growth of small vines, growing wildly. "Hey, Lu Jinan, why don't you use an earth crack to block the zombies' charge? Look at those who are rushing over from behind. It's like they've gone crazy. It's very annoying to fight wave after wave." Wei Haichao suddenly shouted at Lu Jinan with a face full of annoyance. Lu Jimian frowned as he looked at the horde of zombies that were rushing towards him like a tidal wave. In the end, he didn't say anything. He stretched out his hands and pressed in that direction. Soon, the ground started to shake. Then, a horizontal line appeared on the ground 100 meters in front of the base's wall. The horizontal line became wider and wider, and then the zombies on the side of the horizontal line fell into it. None of the people who rushed up from behind were spared. They all fell into the hole and disappeared. Lu Jinan's move immediately broke the momentum of the zombie wave, allowing the metahumans and soldiers below to breathe a sigh of relief. An Earth-type ability user would be able to unleash a terrifying might at a high level. If it reached the 8th level, would it be able to cause a small-scale earthquake or something? Just looking at how far the two sides of Lu Jinan's crack extended, it was very suitable to deal with these zombies. Lin Xiao pretended not to hear Hong Yijie and Lu Jinan's discussion. She looked at the direction where Wu Changyue and the others left and narrowed her eyes. After thinking for a moment, she directly jumped down from the wall. Duan Wan, Shun Yuzhen, and the others, who had been standing behind her, also jumped down. They chased after Lin Xiao and quickly rushed to the edge of the crack. They did not stop and directly jumped over. After jumping over the several meters wide crack, Lin Xiao and the others jumped on top of the zombie horde. They accurately stepped on the zombies' heads and rushed to the building outside the vacuum zone. Lin Xiao had been restraining her aura, so these zombies weren't affected. Shun Yuzhen was also a zombie, so the zombies directly ignored her existence. As for Duan Wan and the others, because they were all carrying something stained with Lin Xiao's blood, the zombies didn't attack them. So Lin Xiao quickly rushed through the vacuum zone with them and went to the surrounding rooftops, then quickly rushed out into the distance. What is she doing? Does she regret coming here and wants to retreat now? Wei Haichao looked at the back of Lin Xiao and the others strangely. Hong Yijie looked in that direction and said, "That direction is the direction where the leader and the others left. Maybe she want to help?" Help? What can a woman like her help with? I think she's going to be a burden. If she really went to the leader's battlefield, I don't know what her purpose is. Lu Jinan snorted disdainfully. He reached into his pocket and took out a pack of cigarettes. He took one out and lit it. Lei Cheng looked at Lan Lu and asked, "You're not going to follow?" Lan Lu shook his head and said, "I'll come back." Lei Cheng asked him in a low voice, "Did you see anything?" Lan Lu continued to shake his head and sighed. "She's immune to my ability. My spirit ability doesn't have much effect on her. Can't you see that she's not affected?" Lei Cheng nodded. He seemed to understand and said with some surprise, "It seems that she really isn't simple. She could even ignore Lan Lu's level 8 spirit hypnosis. Could it be because of her physique?" That's right. Every word Lan Lu said to Lin Xiao just now was mixed with his own special ability. If it was an ordinary special ability user, under his powerful level 8 nervous system, his mind and thoughts would also be disturbed. Even if they weren't completely controlled, they would more or less be affected. However, the female leader had been acting normal since the beginning. It seemed that his ability was not affected at all through the guidance of words. Moreover, the other party kept looking into the distance and did not look at him. Even when they occasionally met, it was just a glance. Of course, otherwise how would you manage so many people in a base in the future? Lan Lu looked at him with a faint smile. That's right. If you don't have some ability, how would you be able to build a base? Lei Cheng nodded. On the other side, Lin Xiao quickly led Duan Wan and the others in the direction of Wu Qingyue and the others. Her speed was neither fast nor slow. On one hand, she was worried that her subordinates would not be able to keep up. On the other hand, she was not afraid that Wu Qingyue and the others would end the battle so quickly. Not long after, they gradually felt a violent energy fluctuation in front of them. The energy of a level 8 ability user was not just for show. Sand and stones flew around them, and the airflow caused by the energy became chaotic. The atmosphere around them was very oppressive and uneasy. There was also the sound of thunder coming from afar. When they looked up, they saw a thick layer of dark clouds in the sky. Lightning constantly fell from the dark clouds, illuminating half of the sky. Chapter 791. Boom boom, boom boom, boom boom dash, a series of explosions mixed with the thunder. Aside from the violent energy of the thunder, there were also two auras. One was cold, and the other was hot. The energies were restless, and they were trying to devour each other. "You guys stay here," Lin Xiao said to them and disappeared in a flash. The closer they got, the clearer they could see what was happening. Only when he got closer could Lin Xiao sense that the thunderbolts that were rumbling and exploding were also divided into two forces. One of them was very violent, and it kept striking down from the sky. The frequency was chaotic, but it was concentrated and dense, and its power varied. The lightning was so bright that it almost blinded people. From the power of the thunder and lightning, it seemed that the area had been flattened into ruins. The other thunder and lightning seemed to be trying to control the violent thunder and lightning. However, the first one was too violent and powerful. The second one seemed to be having a hard time. Meanwhile, the other two were dodging around the minefield, attacking a single target while dodging the lightning bolts that fell from above their heads. It was too dangerous to do two things at once. Xikong Chun and Gao Haoyun's attacks were clearly much weaker, as most of their abilities were used to block the lightning that struck their heads from time to time. "Wu Qingyue, can't you control it all?" Gao Haoyun's exasperated voice could be heard. "Even though I want to, the energy in this thundercloud is much stronger than mine. If we don't kill the zombie emperor and stop its energy transfer, then I can't do anything." Wu Qingyue's voice could be heard, but it was a lot colder. Bang! Another loud explosion rang out. A fireball and a bolt of lightning exploded into a ball of fire. Roar dash from time to time, the roars of zombies could be heard. At this time, Mo Yan's eyes were filled with purple light, and the darkness of zombies had been squeezed out. However, his expression was crazy, and his shoulders were arched, and he was on all fours. His claws were long, and his black nails had grown out. Whenever he saw someone, he would pounce on them with his teeth bared, just like a humanoid beast. Xikong Chun and Gao Haoyun did not dare to get too close and maintained a distance from the zombie emperor while using their abilities to attack it. Seeing that he was about to pounce on her, she immediately retreated. However, Mo Yan's speed was extremely fast. Like a gust of black wind, he rushed forward. Not even his afterimage could be seen, and he arrived next to Gao Haoyun. Right now, he was delirious, but his instinctive sense of danger was still there. Moreover, he could also recognize Gao Haoyun's aura. This aura made his heart extremely agitated, and he wanted to attack. Therefore, Mo Yan kept chasing after Gao Haoyun, attacking him with his claws. The body of a level 8 zombie emperor was already much stronger than a mutant beast. The strength of its muscles and the flexibility of its bones allowed it to smash a hole in the ground with a single claw. And he didn't need to dodge the enemy's attacks at all. Therefore, when Gao Haoyun's ice blades, ice arrows, and ice awls pierced his body, they immediately shattered into ice shards. Even if he could seize the opportunity to freeze Mo Yan, he would not be able to last more than 3 seconds before being blown apart. Moreover, Mo Yan's speed was too fast, and Gao Haoyun did not have many chances to freeze him. "Looks like we can only wait until he runs out of energy." Xikong Chen's figure flashed past and said in a low voice. Wu Qingyue stood calmly at the side, watching the two of them dodge awkwardly. He could only silently release the lightning into the thunderclouds, covering them with the flashing lightning. Lin Xiao watched for a while and realized that they could not take down Mo Yan in a short period of time. Then, she also saw Mo Yan's state. That berserk aura had actually become similar to that of a normal zombie. Moreover, the energy on his body was also very violent and was being released in an overbearing manner. As for the thunderclouds in the sky, they were real thunderclouds. They were not formed by Mo Yan's energy. They were just natural thunderclouds. They were just drawn over by Mo Yan's energy. The energy in the thunderclouds was much more tyrannical than Mo Yan's own energy, which was why Wu Changyue could not integrate it and control it. She watched the battle from the side, and after seeing the situation clearly, she turned her head and looked around. The king zombies that were following Mo Yin earlier were hiding in the surroundings and seemed to be watching from afar. However, the female zombie was gone. The rank 2 king zombies were also missing, and the rank 1 king zombies were missing. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed, and she was wondering why the strength of Mo Yan's subordinates had decreased by so much. However, she quickly frowned because she felt it. The 4 rank 2 king zombies here were actually about to break through to rank 8. If these rank 7 king zombies were to fight Gao Haoyun and Sikong Chan in pairs, they might not be able to defeat a rank 8 metahuman, but they could at least fight to a draw. Level 7 zombies are already able to fight against level 8 paranormals without falling into a disadvantageous position. However, the current Sikong Chun was already at late rank 8 physique stage, and the power of his fire energy was not low. On the other hand, Gao Haoyun and Wu Qingyue had just reached rank 8 not too long ago. If it was not for Wu Qingyue's special ability, he would have a hard time dealing with 2 rank 2 king zombies. However, Gao Haoyun was different. He was an ice elemental and could be said to be weaker in terms of energy. Therefore, Mo Yan's subordinates did not need to be afraid of the 3 rank 8 metahumans. But why did they hide so far away? Not going to help? It seems like they were not worried about Mo Yan. Well, maybe these zombies still do not know what it means to be worried. Lin Xiao shifted her gaze back to the battlefield and looked up at the thunderclouds in the sky. Suddenly, she thought of something. That's right, the lightning on the thunderclouds is uncontrollable. Therefore, these king zombies were actually afraid of being struck by the lightning if they came forward to help. So these king zombies were afraid of being struck by the natural lightning on the thunderclouds. That's why they did not come forward to help. Moreover, looking at Mo Yan's frenzied appearance, the power of his attack was very strong. Bang! Just as she was thinking, Gao Haoyun suddenly did not manage to dodge in time and was sent flying by Mo Yan's palm, smashing into the wall beside him. Even the wall collapsed from the impact. Several lightning bolts struck down from his head, but Wu Qingyue on the other side waved his hand, and the lightning bolts that were about to land on Gao Haoyun's head immediately shifted to the side, exploding a few meters away from Gao Haoyun. Be careful, Gao Haoyun. The other party knows you. Wu Qingyue's smiling voice transmitted over, but most of it was covered by the surrounding lightning. However, Gao Haoyun could guess what he meant because from the moment they came in, this crazy zombie emperor had not let go of him, ignoring the other 2. Cough, cough. Gao Haoyun coughed twice and then suddenly rolled away from the ground. He quickly rolled to the side and left the corner of the collapsed wall. Bang! And Mo Yan directly pounced over, blasting a large hole in the corner. Chapter 792. Lin Wenwen, who returned to the periphery of the base, found that when she got closer to the time when they had the accident, the memory in her mind became more and more strange. The previous strong sense of reality gradually became blurred, and the scene of them fighting with the metal vines became more and more illusory. Lin Wenwen was very confused. She didn't know whether she had really experienced it, or it was just her illusion or a dream. When they reached the periphery of the zombie defense line, a figure stood in the middle of the road. The zombies that originally blocked the road had now separated into 2 sides, making way for them. The figure standing in the middle of the road was an old man. His white hair was neatly combed to the back of his head, meticulously. The old man wore a black cloud-patterned tang suit, his hands behind his back, and his back was slightly bent. If it wasn't for the pair of black eyes under the glasses, with a pair of silver pupils in the middle, it would have been impossible for them to recognize him. They would have thought that he was really an old man. Hey, did Grandpa would come pick us up today? You guys are back too. Seeing the old man, Lin Feng and the others stopped the car. Lin Wenwen jumped out of the car. The old man had gone out with Chiu Lily and Elmar. Now he appeared here. It meant that they had also returned to the base. The old man glanced at the motorcade behind her. Li Zheng stuck his head out from the passenger's seat. How is it, Grandpa Gua? Is there a problem? He meant to ask if anyone in Grandpa Gua's team was infected. Grandpa Gua shook his head and said, "Let's go." His voice was as hoarse as the other zombies. Then he stepped aside, looked at Lin Wenwen, and asked, "How's the harvest?" Lin Wenwen shook her head and said, "Not much, but it's okay." The old man nodded and said, "The leader is not in the base these 2 days." Lin Wenwen was shocked and suddenly thought that if Lin Xiao was not in the base when they were attacked by the metal vines, then what should they do? So they might not be able to wait for the reinforcements. "Let's go back." The old man pointed to the car that Lin Wenwen just got out of. Lin Wenwen nodded and turned to get in the car. She turned back and saw Grandpa was figure flashed and disappeared. After the motorcade passed, the zombies returned to their positions and continued to stand guard. The old man, who had leaped onto the roof of the nearby building, muttered, "Where did this damn brat go? What a neglect of duty." It turned out that this was originally the location of the little boy's zombie AC, but the old man came over to tease him today, and in the end, the little boy got angry and ran away. At this moment, the old man smelled the scent of Lin Feng and the others from afar, so he stayed behind to see if they were all right. After returning to the base, he passed through the gate. Everyone immediately went back to their respective homes to hand in their missions. After checking the inventory, Lin Wenwen returned to his residence to rest. However, he bumped into someone in the hall. "Aya!" The scream came from the other party. Lin Wenwen didn't expect to see a person coming at her as soon as she turned the corner. She reacted in time and leaned to the side. The other party didn't expect to bump into someone so suddenly. He overreacted and took a step back. As a result, he didn't manage to stop himself and slipped. He fell. "Are you all right?" Lin Wenwen looked at the unfamiliar young man who had fallen to the ground with concern. He was handsome, thin, and of medium height. His face was a little pale, and he looked a little sick. "I'm fine." Lu Tong got up from the ground and patted the dust off his butt. When he looked up, he saw a delicate and pretty little face. "It's good that you're fine." Lin Wenwen looked at him with a gentle smile and nodded. Then she turned and left. Lu Tong looked at her back view as she left, and his eyes flickered. A ray of light flashed past. On the other side, Lin Wenwen, who had walked a few steps, slowed down slightly. Her brows were tightly knitted. When she saw the young man just now, a blurry image flashed through her mind. She didn't pay much attention to it just now. Now that she was separated from him, the image in her mind immediately became clear. After the other party walked a distance away, Lin Wenwen turned back to look at the other party's back view. With this look, the image in her mind became even clearer. It was a dimly lit room. She saw a man lying on the wrinkled quilt on the bed. Half of the man's face was buried under the quilt, and the other half was exposed. Lin Wenwen stared closely at that half of the face. It was actually the half of the face that she couldn't be more familiar with. She had been silently looking at this face for a few years. It was half of Yuan Tianqing's handsome face. After seeing this half of the familiar face, the image in Lin Wenwen's mind became a lot clearer. Especially Yuan Tianqing's half-closed eyes and his motionless body lying on the bed. Where is this? Where is this place? This wasn't Yuan Tianqing's room. Then why was he sleeping here? This room looked small and unfamiliar. Whose room was this? Before Lin Wenwen could figure out, she saw a person walk in from the bottom left corner of the image. It was a young man. The young man walked to Yuan Tianqing's side and turned around. Lin Wenwen saw his face. It was the young man who had bumped into her earlier. Then, the next scene made Lin Wenwen's eyes widen. Her breathing quickened, and a wave of anger rose in her. Because she saw the young man walk to Yuan Tianqing's side, bend over, and start to take off his clothes. Until Yuan Tianqing was naked. He took off his own clothes and climbed onto the bed. The young man got onto the bed and lay next to Yuan Tianqing. As he pulled the quilt, he pulled Yuan Tianqing's naked body on top of him. Yuan Tianqing didn't move at all. His eyes were closed as if he was unconscious. The young man pulled Yuan Tianqing on top of him. Just like that, the two of them faced each other naked under the quilt. At this moment, Lin Wenwen felt dizzy. Her body swayed for a moment before she woke up. She realized that the image in her mind had disappeared. Lin Wenwen's face turned from green to red, and then from red to white. Her breathing quickened, and her chest heaved up and down. She couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. She suppressed the emotions in her heart, raised her head abruptly, and ran to Yuan Tianxing's office. While thinking about what was going on in the image just now, she ran to the door of Yuan Tianxing's office. The door was open, and she saw Yuan Tianxing sitting at the desk with his head down, working. Lin Wenwen suddenly didn't dare to go in. She quickly turned around and took a few steps back. Lu Junjie, who was guarding the door and was about to greet her, opened his mouth and looked at her with a puzzled expression. Seeing that Yuan Tianxing was sitting in the office, she suddenly felt relieved. But the image in her mind really made her feel uncomfortable. She had to figure it out. Lin Wenwen, who had calmed down, looked back at the door, beckoned Lu Junjie to the side, and asked, "Did Brother Tianxing do anything strange these days? Or how is he feeling?" Chapter 793. Lu Junjie shook his head blankly. "No, everything is normal." Lin Wenwen's heart immediately calmed down a little, and she asked again as if to confirm, "Really? Think about it carefully." Lu Junjie looked at her strangely and said, "I've been following the deputy leader, and nothing happened. The deputy leader stayed in the office almost every day and didn't even go back to the dormitory. What could have happened?" "It's good that you're fine." Lin Wenwen breathed a sigh of relief, then muttered as she turned around and walked away. Lu Junjie was left looking at her with a puzzled look on his face. On the other side, after Lu Tong left, he found Li Honglin. Li Honglin handed him a small glass bottle filled with liquid and said, "Here, this is made from mutant plants. I brought it from Haicheng, and the effects are real." Lu Tong took it and asked hesitantly, "Other than making people unconscious, there shouldn't be any other effects, right?" Li Honglin nodded and said with a confident smile, "Don't worry, it's just a high-strength knockout drug. It depends on who you use it on and how much you use. For ordinary people, a little bit has a big effect. It's much better than sleeping pills. But for arcanists, it's not very useful, unless you put a lot of it in." Lu Tong raised the drug in his hand and asked, "Then what level of arcanist can it work on? How long does the drug last?" "As long as it's not a level 7 arcanist, it's effective. Even a level 7 arcanist will lose consciousness for about 10 minutes if they drink it. The lower the level, the longer it will take." "Who are you planning to use it to deal with?" Li Honglin couldn't help but ask as he explained the effects of the medicine. Lu Tong shook his head and said, "It has nothing to do with you." Then he gave the points ticket in his hand to Li Honglin and turned to leave. After entering the base, the contact between them was not so close. They would only look for each other when they needed help. After getting the drug, Lu Tong thought of the woman he had just met. She had changed so much that he almost didn't recognize her at that time. She had short hair, wore a dirty Villa Combat uniform, and wore military boots. Her whole body exuded a heroic spirit. This image was completely different from her previous image of long hair, clean dress, and stiletto heels. Lu Tong was slightly surprised by the drastic change in the other party. However, Lu Tong was more concerned about the relationship between this woman and Yuan Tianxing. Others might not know, but he knew a little. This was because Lu Tong had been paying close attention to Yuan Tianxing. After all, Yuan Tian was handsome, young, and powerful. He felt that this woman was too stupid. Since she liked Yuan Tianxing so much, why didn't she just attack him directly? What was the point of just watching from back? That was why he didn't come with Duan Wan and the others, because he didn't know Yuan Tianxing was here. After finding out about it, he thought of ways to persuade Wang Jian, Li Honglin, Lu Hao, and the others to give up on the Netherworld King's base. If he wanted Yuan Tianxing, he would have to use some tricks. After arriving at this new base, Yuan Tianxing might even become the leader in the future after the base developed. If he could get close to him, he wouldn't have to worry about his life in the future. Therefore, he asked Li Honglin to help him get these medicines, and even reluctantly exchanged his points for them. Right now, in this new base, the most valuable thing was points. The points of the base could be exchanged for any item or transaction, as long as you had enough points. The points tickets were printed by the base's government office using a printer and stamped with a mark. Others wanted to fake it, but they couldn't replicate the mark. Lu Tong took the medicine and walked back. Although his heart ached at the loss of those points tickets, he thought about how he would be able to follow Yuan Tianxing in the future. Tomorrow was the day that Yuan Tianxing would go to the construction site. During this time, Lu Tong had already found out about Yuan Tianxing's daily routine. Therefore, he knew that Yuan Tianxing was completely focused on his work. If he wasn't in the office, he would go to the construction site to investigate. He rarely returned to the dormitory. He ate in the office, rested in the office when he was tired, and only returned to the dormitory when he needed to take a shower. As long as Yuan Tianxing went to the construction site, he would have a chance to get close to him. When the sky turned dark, over at the Huaxia base. Because Lu Jinan's ultimate skill had split the ground, the zombies couldn't rush over and everyone had enough time to rest. Over at the thundercloud area, although the sky had darkened, the lightning was still flashing continuously. Boom dash, there were still lightning strikes, but the amount was much less. However, the location of the thundercloud was no longer where it was before. Because of Mo Yan's movement, the thundercloud in the sky also moved. Therefore, wherever Mo Yan and Sikong Chen fought, the thundercloud would follow. Wherever the thundercloud went, the ground would turn into a mess of ruins. Bang dash, a figure flew to the side and fell on an old car that was emitting sparks and black smoke. The figure quickly got up with a roll, swung his body on all fours, raised his head, bared his fangs, and roared at the front. Roar! Before he could finish roaring, his hind legs kicked the ground, and he immediately turned into a blur as he dashed forward. What is this zombie emperor's body made of? Why can't it be broken? Gao Haoyun's face was also ferocious, almost the same as the zombie's expression. However, it was missing a face full of purple veins. Hey, you didn't get caught by him, right? Why do I feel like something's wrong with your aura? Wu Qingyue's face was no longer smiling. His handsome face was slightly frowning. Standing on the side, he raised one hand to control the thundercloud and the other hand to track Mo Yan's position. Wherever his fingers went, a few thigh-thick thunderbolts would fall. This zombie emperor has the lightning attribute. Your thunderbolts won't have much of an effect on it. Sikong Chun said in a low voice. Then he suddenly retreated and threw out a high-temperature fireball. Bang dash. The fireball was thrown out, but Mo Yan's figure reacted quickly and dodged it. The fireball brushed past Mo Yan's body and hit the building behind him. Half of the building, which had already been badly damaged by the explosion, was immediately blown up again. The broken pieces of the wall flew everywhere. The three of them had been fighting with the zombies for an entire afternoon, and now they were in a mess. Only Wu Qingyue's clothes were slightly better than Sikong Chen's. Gao Haoyun, who was constantly being attacked by Mo Yan, already had a few burn areas on his body. His face was covered in dirt, and he looked very messy. Gao Haoyun gritted his teeth. His face was a bit pale in the dark. He weakly replied, "No," but when he said that he didn't, he felt very guilty, because there was a place on his body that was scratched. Chapter 794. Roar. Mo Yan was in a worse state than Gao Haoyun. His entire body was covered in dust from rolling on the ground, and the fabric of his clothes was torn. There were also many light wounds on his body, all of which were caused by the ice blades and the explosions. However, his flesh had been strengthened to a very tough level. These small wounds did not affect him much. Lin Xiao observed for an entire afternoon, only to see Mo Yan attacking Gao Haoyun like a madman. If Gao Haoyun was not a rank 8 and an ice metahuman, in addition to Wu Qingyue and Sikong Chun helping him, Gao Haoyun would have long been dead. Metahumans of the same rank had no chance of winning against a zombie, not to mention that this was a zombie that had gone berserk. Moreover, Lin Xiao looked at Gao Haoyun's direction. His eyes flashed. The corners of his mouth curled up into a mysterious smile. Wu Qingyue joined the battle because he was suppressed by Mo Yan's thundercloud. Both of them were lightning elementalists, but he lost because of his human physique. On the other hand, this guy obviously did not really want to help. This guy was the same as her, here to join in the fun. He was just bored, so he joined and have some fun. 3 rank 8 metahumans against a zombie emperor, fighting from morning to night. The long battle had made Sikong Chun and Gao Haoyun very irritable. Although they did not use much of their abilities, they were still unable to truly harm the zombie emperor. This caused both of them to feel suffocated. Seek-only was still fine. He was a calm and cautious person, so this was not a big deal. On the other hand, Gao Haoyun was a lot more impatient. That was why his attacks and dodging became slower. In addition, Mo Yin had only targeted him, so Gao Haoyun was slowly unable to hold on. That was why when he was careless, Mo Yin scratched his waist. However, he did not dare to let Seek-only know that he was scratched by the zombie, so he silently used his ability to freeze the wound on his waist. The infection rate of the virus varied from person to person. The higher the level of the ability, the slower the infection. If it was an ordinary zombie, he might be able to hold on for 2 to 3 years, but now it was a zombie emperor that caught him. The virus of the zombie emperor was different. Gao Haoyun didn't know how much longer he could hold on, even though he was using his ability to freeze himself. But from the beginning, he had already felt the tyrannical power of this virus. Therefore, he used a large amount of energy to maintain the area around his waist. Right now, he was no longer in the mood to continue fighting. He wanted to leave as soon as possible and find someone to research an antidote for him. Maybe the technicians in China had the ability. However, he was unwilling to let the zombie emperor go just like that. Just as Gao Haoyun was hesitating and hesitating, the thunderclouds in the sky suddenly shook violently. Wu Qingyue's body trembled, and then his face stiffened. Blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. He abruptly raised his head and stared at the thunderclouds in the sky. 3 seconds later, he immediately shouted to the 2 men, "Go! The thunderstorm is coming." As he said, the thundercloud above his head was getting bigger and bigger. Because Wu Qiangyue had been suppressing the lightning energy inside, it was like a cloud accumulating more and more lightning energy. The area of the dark clouds was getting larger and larger, and the pressure was getting lower and lower. A gust of wind began to blow in the surroundings. Because it was nighttime, the people didn't feel the change in the dark clouds. They only felt that the wind was getting stronger, and the lightning had become more complex. The accumulated lightning energy caused the energy to shrink, but the power had multiplied. Wu Qingyue frowned and raised his hand to wipe the corner of his mouth, but he didn't say anything else. With a flash, he retreated from the minefield. Bang! Boom! Boom! As soon as Wu Qingyue let go, the thunderclouds seemed to crack open, and the lightning inside broke out of the shell and struck down with a deafening sound in the blink of an eye. Roar dash! As if he felt the aura of the thundercloud, Mo Yin jumped to the top of a pile of rubble, opened his arms, and roared ferociously. Sikong Chun and Gao Haoyun's hearts jumped at the same time. A bad premonition arose. Hearing Wu Qingyue's shout, they immediately retreated from the range of the minefield without hesitation. Boom dash! With a loud explosion, Mo Yan's entire body exploded into a ball of lightning. This time, the power of the explosion didn't just create a large pit, but also directly spread out in a circle around Mo Yan's body, bringing with it an oppressive aura. The ball of lightning shot out countless lightning bolts in all directions, turning everything in its path into dust. In the blink of an eye, the entire area was cleared, forming a huge pit. Luckily, the 3 of them dodged quickly. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand this terrifying power that could turn everything into dust. Before Wu Qingyue spoke, Lin Xiao had already yelled at Duan Wan and the others, "Run." Then, he quickly led them out and found a house to hide in. This zombie emperor, don't tell me it broke through to rank 9. Duan Wan's face was a bit pale, obviously affected by the power just now. Shen Yuzhen also looked at Lin Xiao blankly. Her level was too low. She couldn't tell if Mo Yin had leveled up or not, but she instinctively felt a sense of fear. Lin Xiao shook her head. No, this power was borrowed by Mo Yin. This power was borrowed by Mo Yin. This is the power of nature. She looked up at the sky. Pa pa pa. A few large raindrops fell on her face. Boom boom boom. The thunderclouds that Mo Yin had released as power were no longer flashing with lightning. Only a few muffled sounds of thunder and a few flashes of lightning could be heard. Hua hua hua. The sky began to rain. The originally cold weather at night became even colder because of the rain. The temperature dropped, so Duan Wan and the others immediately filled their bodies with energy so they wouldn't feel so cold. Seeing that Wu Qingyue and the others were already running towards the China base, Lin Xiao wasn't in a hurry to go back with them. She turned her head to look at Mo Yan's direction and decided to stay and observe Mo Yan's situation. You guys go back to China first, I'll go take a look. Lin Xiao turned and said to Duan Wan and the others. Yes. Duan Wan and the others didn't say anything, only responding and leaving with Shun Yuzhen. After Lin Xiao watched them leave, he turned around and disappeared from where he stood. After Mo Yin suddenly exploded, he crawled forward and crawled on the ground. He let the rain wash his body and the ground around him. After a while, he slowly climbed up from the muddy ground. He bent his back, arms hanging down, and stood up shakily. The wild aura from before had already disappeared from his body. Not long after, a white shadow and a few other figures flashed and flew to his side. Chapter 795. The female zombie in the white dress appeared next to Mo Yin and quickly put her hand on his arm. A gentle energy was transferred from the female zombie's hand to Mo Yan's body. Although the other zombies appeared, they didn't get too close to Mo Yin. They all stood more than 10 meters away and watched. Mo Yin lowered his head and closed his devilish eyes. His angular face was still full of blood vessels, but in the dark night, it wasn't very obvious. Lin Xiao passed the other zombies and quietly approached Mo Yin. While being vigilant, she curiously looked at Mo Yin. Mo Yin's breath was calm, not as violent as before. It was like a beast resting quietly on the ground, but it wasn't really asleep. The female zombie was quietly healing him. Lin Xiao stood next to her and felt the energy of her ability. She didn't even need to squint her eyes to see the white light. It was like a spring breeze caressing one's face, making one feel very comfortable. There was a slight itch, but also a cool feeling. Not long after, Mo Yin slightly straightened his back and stood up. He raised his head and waved his hand at the female zombie. The female zombie immediately let go of her hand and withdrew her ability. Roar dash at this time. Mo Yin opened his eyes, a pair of dazzling purple eyes dimmed. He opened his mouth and let out a deep roar. Lin Xiao was stunned when she heard this. She took a few steps back and appeared in front of Mo Yin. She looked at him with a surprised face. Huh? You can feel me? As soon as she appeared, Mo Yin didn't react. The surrounding zombies immediately bared their teeth at Lin Xiao. Roar dash. When the female zombie in the white dress saw Lin Xiao, she immediately flashed behind Mo Yin. Then she revealed half of her head and a pair of black eyes with white light, and roared at Lin Xiao. Why are you all so excited? If I wanted to take care of you, do I need to wait until now? Lin Xiao coldly snorted at them. And the reaction of the female zombie in the white dress made Lin Xiao inexplicably think of Xiao Xiao, who was still in her space. Roar dash. The zombies didn't appreciate her words and continued to roar at her without changing their expressions. They were like a pack of wolves whose territory had been invaded by an enemy, and their fur was about to explode. Fortunately, none of them were natural animals. Otherwise, he would have seen pairs of ears or tails. All right, it didn't have ears or tail, but it had a pair of huge wings. One of the zombies seemed to be unable to withstand Lin Xiao's pressure and directly transformed into a huge eagle standing on the ground, flapping its large wings. Mo Yin stared at Lin Xiao and roared, "Roar!" Lin Xiao shrugged and said, "Don't worry. I'm just here to watch the fun. I know who you are, and I'm not going to get in your way. Of course, as long as you don't have any ideas about my base. Yeah, the lines on your face are a little strange." After saying that, Lin Xiao carefully looked at Mo Yan's face. Mo Yin subconsciously raised his hand to point at his face, but it was completely smooth. He didn't feel anything. He knew that when he went berserk, his veins would swell and float. He didn't discover it himself. He asked the female zombie next to him, But after he woke up and let the female zombie heal him, these veins would disappear. Although he had turned into a zombie, he still cared a lot about his face. After all, he was very handsome. Even if he became a zombie, he would still be a super handsome zombie. After hearing Lin Xiao say that, Mo Yin subconsciously looked back at the female zombie with a questioning gaze after touching his face. The female zombie looked at his face and saw that the veins on Mo Yan's face didn't disappear like before. She was a little scared and shrank back. Then she weakly opened her mouth, roar. Mo Yan's eyes were obviously stunned, but he didn't care about Lin Xiao anymore. He immediately roared at the zombie next to him. After hearing that, Lin Xiao's mouth slightly twitched. He wanted to laugh, but felt that it was weird. Very quickly, the zombie that was yelled at by Mo Yin turned his backpack forward and reached into it to feel around. He took out a palm-sized mirror and quickly handed it to Mo Yin. Looking at the zombie emperor who kept looking at himself in the mirror in the middle of the night, Lin Xiao's expression was a little speechless. This scene was a little weird. Looks like it's imprinted on your face. I see that it's on your neck. Could it be on your whole body? Lin Xiao looked at Mo Yin, who didn't care about anything and only looked at the mirror. Even if there was no light at night, her eyes could clearly see the bloodlines on Mo Yan's face. It was like the beautiful lines of lightning flashing across the sky. It was just that Lin Xiao couldn't see what color was at night because it was very dark. But since the lines were so dark, it was obvious that the color was deep. However, these lines weren't like the blood vessels that swelled up and surfaced on the surface of the skin like a blood net. But now it was like a tattoo on his body. Although the lines covered his face, the evil and tough charm did not diminish. Instead, because of the lightning-like sharpness in the lines, his face looked more like a work of art. Lin Xiao looked at him for a while and saw that he was still taking pictures. And his expression kept changing. One moment he frowned, the next moment he relaxed, and the corner of his eyes curved with a smile. Why did he look like he couldn't believe his own handsomeness? Lin Xiao couldn't help but want to roll her eyes. Hey, are you done? Did you ask me to show myself to see you look in a mirror? Only then did Mo Yin reluctantly pass the mirror to one of his subordinates. He looked at Lin Xiao up and down, and with a puzzled expression, he lightly roared, "Oh." Lin Xiao said indifferently, "Whatever level you think I am. Is that important?" And Mo Yan's expression turned cold, and he continued to roar, "Oh." Lin Xiao raised her eyebrows and said, "Didn't I just say that I'm here to join the fun? I don't want to care about you in China Base. Whether it's China Base or Gao Haoyun, it's none of my business how you want to deal with them. As long as you don't provoke me anymore, it's fine. I'm the same as you. I'm not human. Of course, I can't be with humans, but I have to protect my family and friends. I'm not like you, living alone in this apocalypse." When she said this, she stared at Mo Yin. Mo Yan's eyes flashed coldly. "Oh." Lin Xiao's eyes also flashed coldly. "Of course I know who you are and what you've been through. But so what? We'll mind our own business. It's the others who harmed you, not me." Mo Yin looked at her and didn't say anything. Lin Xiao said, "As for Gao Haoyun, he's already been caught by your fingernails. Even if you don't chase after him, you can't escape the fate of becoming a zombie." Chapter 796. The reason why Lin Xiao dared to appear in front of Mo Yin and negotiate with him was because she saw that the energy in his body had been emptied. Although she didn't have to show herself, he could already sense her existence. In that case, there was no point in her hiding anymore. Lin Xiao squinted her eyes and saw that Mo Yan's body was emitting a faint purple light in the dark. But the light was too weak, showing that his body was like a lamp that had run out of oil. As long as he didn't attract the natural thunderclouds from before, Lin Xiao wasn't worried that he could cause any harm to her. Moreover, she also saw something even more important, and that was the other party's corpse core. It should be said that the corpse core in Mo Yan's brain was different from before. When they were fighting before, Lin Xiao was standing too far away and didn't see it. Now that she got closer, she realized that his corpse core had changed. Last time at the base, it was clearly a light purple corpse core, but now it had turned into a dark purple crystal. The color number had deepened several times, becoming a very deep color. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that this dark purple crystal's corpse core was full of small cracks. And the female zombie's energy, just now, was repairing the cracks on the corpse core in his brain. But maybe because the female zombie's level was too low, the energy was too weak. It didn't help much. Lin Xiao squinted her eyes, and a thought flashed through her mind. Was it because of these cracks that made him crazy? But when she met this guy at the base, the corpse core was clearly fine. Why did it become like this now? This question lingered in Lin Xiao's mind. Roared dash. Mo Yin roared at her, but only brought her back to reality and asked her what she was looking at. Lin Xiao opened her slightly squinted eyes and looked at him. Seeing that you didn't kill all the survivors at the Black Dragon base, I'll give you a reminder. Don't rely too much on the power of nature. If it's too big, you won't be able to handle it. Saying that, she took a step back and disappeared in front of Mo Yin and his subordinates. Mo Yin smelled the air around him. His expression was a bit cold. Actually, he didn't know where the female zombie leader was hiding, but he had a feeling that there was a strong one nearby. He didn't expect it to be the female zombie leader. Of course, Mo Yin wasn't referring to the level 5 zombie leader. He was referring to the leader of the new base. Thinking back, he also felt that she was very strange. She was clearly a zombie, but she actually built a human base. What was he trying to do? Now that he heard what she said, he realized that she had built it to protect her family and friends. Even if I become a zombie, there's still people I want to protect and things I want to do. He, on the other hand, had no family to begin with. His best friend, brother, and the person he liked had all betrayed him. Other than revenge, he really did not know what he should do. Now that the revenge was almost over, what was next? Where should he go? Quietly become a handsome zombie? That night, after Long Qingying gently pushed open the door of the dormitory, Lin Wenwen was still sitting on the sofa in the living room, waiting for her to come back. After they moved to the school, Lin Wenwen and Long Qingying lived in a house above the teachers. In fact, only the Lin family, Yuan Tianxing, Chen Yuding, and a few other high-ranking people lived in this building. How is it? Did you find anything? Lin Wenwen saw Long Qingying open the door and immediately stood up to ask her. Long Qingying took out a folded piece of paper and handed it to her, saying expressionlessly, "It's a psychic from the second batch of people that came from Hades base a few days ago. Space type. Why do you suddenly want to investigate him?" As she spoke, her ordinary but cold and indifferent face revealed some curiosity. They just came back today, and during dinner, this guy dragged her around the base to look for people, but she did not say who she was looking for. After looking for 2 hours, she suddenly pointed at a skinny young man and said that she wanted to investigate him. This person is a bit strange. Lin Wenwen's eyes flashed as he looked at the information Long Qingying gave him. That scene had always been in her mind. It was so clear at that time. It was as if it had really happened. If she did not ask Lu Junjie, there was nothing strange about Yuan Tianxing recently. She really thought that it was something that had already happened. He was wronged once. At that time, there was a man called Chun Hao who wanted to frame him. He even kidnapped Xiao, Lu, and Tong Tong, preparing to kill them, and then create some clues to lead to this person called Lu Tong. However, Xiao, Lu, and Tong Tong were rescued by the leader, and that Chun Hao was beaten to death by your sister-in-law. Long Qingying's face was expressionless as she told her about Lu Tong. What? Someone actually dared to touch our family Xiao Lu. He deserved to be beaten to death by sister-in-law. Lin Wenwen heard this and immediately raised his head in shock and anger. Long Qingying nodded and said, "Although this Lu Tong was innocent at that time, I heard that he and Chun Hao were in the same group before coming to our base. I didn't expect that they would immediately start killing each other after coming in. That Chun Hao is not a good person. Obviously, this Lu Tong is not a good person either." Speaking up to here, Long Qingying's originally expressionless face became a little cold. "I heard that this group of people originally came from Hades base together, but halfway through, they had a disagreement. Paranormals were divided into one group, and ordinary people were divided into another group. Moreover, this Lu Tong had the idea to let Chun Hao and the others capture ordinary people to use as bait to lure zombies. Using ordinary people as bait, he looked weak and weak, as if he could be blown away by the wind. I didn't expect that he would do such a thing. Lin Wenwen frowned. His eyes showed that he was very disgusted with this kind of person. As if thinking of something, Lin Wenwen asked again, "Then what is his relationship with Brother Tianxing? Have they ever been in contact?" Long Qingying shook her head. "He hasn't been in contact with Deputy Leader Yuan, but these few days he has been secretly asking about Leader Yuan Ba. If it wasn't for you suddenly asking me to investigate him, I don't think anyone would have noticed this. Is it because of this that you want me to investigate?" Saying that, she looked at Lin Wenwen as if she had understood something. "He really wants to use Brother Tianxing." When Lin Wenwen heard Long Qingying say that this Lu Tong was secretly asking about Yuan Tianxing, he thought about the scene that appeared in his mind when he first met Lu Tong. His expression immediately changed, and he immediately gritted his teeth. "I have already asked people to continue to keep an eye on him. If there is any movement, I will tell you. Oh, I also heard that he went to meet someone today, also from this batch of paranormals from Hades Base. I think we should also pay attention to this person." Long Qingying thought about it and said. Chapter 797. The next day, Lin Wenwen gets up early and goes to her mother's room. After the kidnapping of Lin Xiaolu and Tong Tong, Mrs. Lin doesn't dare to be careless with her baby granddaughter anymore. Even if Lin Feng comes back, she has to keep an eye on Lin Xiaolu and find several bodyguards for her. Qian Xiaoai, who looked delicate but was tall and bald, was the team leader responsible for protecting Lin Xiaolu. Lin Wenwen doesn't keep an eye on Yuan Tianxing directly. She knows that Yuan Tianxing will go to the construction site this afternoon, but he will stay in the office in the morning and work hard. She asks Long Qingying to keep an eye on Lu Tong and see what he is doing. Since Lu Tong wants Yuan Tianxing and secretly asks about him, he'll try to contact Yuan Tianxing if he knows that Yuan Tianxing will go to the construction site this afternoon. On the other side, Lu Tong goes to the construction site early in the morning. Although he is a space superpower, he is also a man. The work on the construction site is a bit hard, but he can still do some work. Because working on the construction site, there is food and rice or noodles. More importantly, there are points to get. So even if Lu Tong doesn't want to do heavy work, he has to work on the construction site when he first joined the base. When there is a chance, he will find a way to join some corpse hunting team or go on a mission with the army. After only an hour, someone cares about Lu Tong and asks him to rest. "Lu Tong, are you tired? If you're tired, go and have a rest." Lu Tong has been working hard on the construction site these days in order to leave a good impression and arouse people's sympathy. He has put a lot of effort into it. There are ordinary people and superpowers among the workers around him. Lu Tong is a thin young man with a handsome face, but he is eager to do everything. He is not afraid of hard work or tiredness, and he often brings water or helps them. It is obvious that doing heavy work is hard, but he can persist. They all think that this young man is good, but he is too thin and looks a little pale. They are afraid that he can't bear the heavy work on the construction site. "Oh, it's okay. I can still hold on for a while." Lu Tong took the shovel and shoveled the cement into the iron bucket that was going to be hung high up. At the same time, he turned around and said with a humble smile. His face was covered with sweat. Although his face was pale, he forced himself to endure it and said, "Then come over and drink some water before you finish. This job can't be rushed. Don't ruin your body. Look at your small body being tormented by you. Even if you don't feel heartache, we all feel heartache for you." An uncle laughed loudly. A hint of impatience flashed through Lu Tong's heart, but she still pretended to be indifferent and shook her head. "No, I'm fine." His face was really pale. In fact, Lu Tong was also feeling very uncomfortable, because he didn't sleep at all last night and forced himself to come to work today, just for an all-nighter and a morning of hard work. In the afternoon, he would be able to carry out his plan. Therefore, even though his body was a little uncomfortable, he forced himself to endure it. His mood also became agitated, but on the surface, he pretended that he didn't care. It wasn't until the afternoon that the surrounding management staff became a little nervous and active. When Lu Tong saw this, he immediately knew that Yuan Tianqing was coming. He immediately walked to the side of another elevated platform and knocked on the metal frame. A worker on the metal frame lowered his head and looked at him. The two of them looked at each other. Then Lu Tong nodded lightly, and the worker also nodded. Then Lu Tong climbed up the elevated platform. Yuan Tianqing appeared together with Chen Yuding. Behind them, Lu Junjie and the others walked to the construction site. They wore safety helmets on their heads. The two of them looked up at the progress of the surrounding construction as they chatted. Now that there are more people, I think it should be done in about 10 days. Are you sure how big the area on that side is? Has the leader confirmed it? Chen Yuding asked Yuan Tianqing. The side he was talking about was, of course, the other side of the base. Back then, Lin Xiao said that the base was divided into two parts, yin and yang. Now, the human side of the yang side was almost completed. There was still a small gap in the wall before the base on this side was completely completed. After this side was completed, they still had to build the other side. Yuan Tianqing nodded. Yes, the leader has confirmed it before he left. The two of them looked at the blueprints in their hands as they walked and asked the staff next to them. Just then, a cry suddenly sounded from the top left of the two of them. Be careful! Ahu! Everyone was shocked and subconsciously turned their heads to look. They saw Lu Tong lying on the side of the shelf, reaching out to grab a person who had fallen outside the shelf. The man was hanging outside the shelf and was also holding Lu Tong's hand. He looked very panicked and was shouting, "Help!" This was because the other party was a man who weighed more than 50 kilograms, while Lu Tong was not tall and was very thin. Therefore, he grabbed the man and hung on the shelf. He used too much force, causing the veins on his face to pop. His originally delicate face became somewhat ferocious. Danger! Hurry up and save him! Someone shouted loudly. Yuan Tianqing's expression immediately froze. He immediately reached out and saw a soil platform rise from the ground under the man who was hanging outside the shelf. Soon, the man was lifted up. The man climbed up the shelf in a panic. Lu Tong's face was covered in sweat as he helped him squat by the side. All right, he's fine. However, just as he said that, Lu Tong's eyes rolled slightly. He swayed and fell to the side. The man had just calmed down slightly when he saw Lu Tong suddenly fall. He was shocked again. Lu Tong. At this moment, the staff on the ground who had been shocked by the false alarm immediately heard the man shouting again. Captain Lu Tong has fainted. Hurry up and help. After a flurry of getting the man down, Yuan Tianqing and Chen Yuding walked over. They looked at Lu Tong's delicate and handsome face, but it was as pale as a sheet of paper. There was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead and the tip of his nose. How is he? They looked at the fainted Lu Tong and his pale lips. Yuan Tianqing frowned slightly and asked, I don't know. Maybe he's too tired. He's done a lot of heavy work recently. Also, he was frightened just now and almost fell down while pulling me. Maybe his body couldn't take it anymore, so he fainted. At this moment, the man who was saved by Yuan Tianqing with the soil platform said with a panicked expression. Yuan Tianqing looked at Lu Tong's pale face with his eyes closed and didn't say anything. Chen Yuding, who was beside him, immediately said, Hurry up and send him to the medical department. What are you waiting for? Yes. The staff in charge immediately carried the man away in a flurry. Meanwhile, Yuan Tianqing and Chen Yuding continued to survey the construction site. They weren't affected by this incident. In an inconspicuous corner not far away, Lin Wenwen watched this scene quietly. Then, she watched as Lu Tong was carried away. Her eyes flickered slightly, then she turned and left. Chapter 798. Lin Wenwen felt that after the apocalypse, she was a woman and liked men. But now, her love rival was not a woman, but a man. And now it seemed that the other party was a person who liked to play tricks. No one noticed how Lu Tong and the man got into an accident, but Lin Wenwen saw it. Because before Yuan Tianqing appeared, she had been secretly watching Lu Tong. She saw that the two of them were originally standing below the shelf, but when Yuan Tianxing and Chun Yuding appeared from afar, they immediately climbed up the shelf. Then, as if they had an agreement, one pretended to fall out, and the other held the other's hand tightly. It was a good show. If she hadn't been watching them from the beginning, she wouldn't have known it was an act. In the end, Lu Tong fainted like a demon, although he didn't directly faint in Yuan Tianxing's arms. But the effect was enough to attract Yuan Tianxing's attention and make Yuan Tianxing remember his face. Did he put in so much effort to put on this show just to leave a good impression on Yuan Tianxing so that he could remember him? Lin Wenwen rubbed her chin gently, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. It seemed that Lu Tong wasn't in a hurry, and the first step was considered a success. Now it was time to see how he would do the second and third steps, and then how he would get Yuan Tianxing on the bed. Although Lin Wenwen knew Lu Tong's intention, she couldn't tell Yuan Tianxing directly, because such an action would only make Yuan Tianxing think that she was being paranoid. Before she had concrete evidence, she might be seen as being unreasonable. On one hand, she didn't want Yuan Tianxing to hate her, and, on the other hand, she wanted to know what Lu Tong was up to. Lin Wenwen decided to continue watching Lu Tong in secret. Before she had enough evidence, Lin Wenwen wouldn't act rashly. Of course, for Yuan Tianxing's chastity, she had to watch Lu Tong. Moreover, Lin Wenwen already had some uncertain thoughts about that scene. Although she now knew that Lu Tong had bad intentions towards Yuan Tianxing, Lin Wenwen didn't believe that Yuan Tianxing would be easily knocked out by Lu Tong in that strange little room. So while she was watching Lu Tong, she had to verify her own thoughts. Did she awaken another kind of ability? As for the Huaxiao base, Lin Xiao returned to the Huaxiao base and continued to watch the show. After Xikong Chun and the other two returned, they rested for a night and immediately held a meeting in the command room the next day. When they returned last night, everyone received news that the three of them did not manage to kill the zombie emperor. Everyone was slightly taken aback by this news, and they were puzzled. 3 rank 8 metahumans could not even kill a rank 8 zombie emperor? Was it because something had happened? Or was a level 8 zombie emperor really that powerful? Thus, on the second day of the meeting, everyone looked at Xikong Chen's group with curiosity and anticipation. On the other hand, Xikong Chun and Gao Haoyun's faces were extremely gloomy. Wu Qingyue's gentle and handsome face still carried an unchanging smile, making it hard for people to tell what he was thinking. Tell me, what's going on? Just how strong was the zombie emperor? The 3 of you have been fighting for so long, yet you still haven't defeated the other party, Lan Lu asked curiously as he looked at Xikong Chen's cold face. The moment he asked, Xikong Chen's cold and stern face darkened even more. He pursed his lips, and a dark light flickered in his eyes, but he did not speak. Gao Haoyun's face and lips were slightly pale, and his expression was also very unsightly. His face seemed to be holding back something, but it was concealed by his expressionless face. Seeing that Xikong Chen did not speak, he said, "You have to ask Sea City's leader Wu." After saying that, he looked at Wu Qingyue with dissatisfaction. It was because of Wu Qingyue's actions that caused him to be beaten up so badly by the zombie emperor. If Wu Qingyue could suppress the lightning in the sky, he would not have fallen to this state. He was even scratched by the zombie emperor. After Gao Haoyun returned last night, he did not sleep at all. He immediately went to look for a virus researcher in Huaxia base, hid his identity, and used his powerful strength to threaten the researcher to research an antidote for the virus in his body. Because the experimental zombie had killed a group of experienced researchers, the technical level of the people behind them had greatly decreased. If they could research an antidote for the virus, they would have done it long ago. There was no need to wait until now. Therefore, in order to use his ability to suppress the virus in his body, Gao Haoyun did not sleep for the entire night. Not to mention that he did not sleep last night. He would not be able to sleep in the future. This was because he needed to be awake in order to suppress the virus in his body. If he were to fall asleep, his control over the virus would be slightly loosened, and the overbearing zombie virus would immediately erupt, quickly spreading to every corner of his body. Although Gao Haoyun did not have any strange reactions after a night of not sleeping, other than his pale face and pale lips, everything else was normal. Other than Lin Xiao, no one else knew that he had the zombie virus in his body. Wu Qingyue did not react to Gao Haoyun pointing his gun at him, but his expression did not change, and he still said with a smile, "I had no choice. That was a natural thundercloud. It was not created by the zombie emperor, so I could only temporarily suppress the lightning energy on the thundercloud. But as you can see, the more I suppress it, the more energy it accumulates, and in the end, it was triggered by the zombie emperor. I had no choice." Then why didn't you directly cut off the connection between the zombie emperor and the thundercloud? If you cut off this connection, wouldn't the zombie emperor not be able to trigger the lightning on the thundercloud? Gao Haoyun stared at Wu Qingyue with a sinister expression. Looking at Wu Qingyue's handsome face, he felt that he was an eyesore. If you have the ability, then go ahead. In any case, I don't have the ability. Although I also have the lightning attribute, my energy is weaker than the zombie emperor. Moreover, you also saw the state of the zombie emperor. It was going berserk. When the zombie emperor went berserk, the energy released from its body was so explosive. If I directly rushed over and cut off the connection between it and the thundercloud, I would only be repelled. Moreover, I had suppressed most of the lightning energy, and the two of you combined couldn't even kill a single zombie emperor. Are you blaming me? Wu Qingyue's smile turned cold, and then he shrugged his shoulders and said. Wu Qingyue naturally could not accept Gao Haoyun's words of trying to push the blame onto him. Moreover, he did use his full strength at that time, although it looked like he was slacking off. If he did not suppress the energy of the thundercloud, they would not have been able to deal with the zombie emperor so easily. Chapter 799. Looks like this zombie emperor is really hard to deal with. Before Gao Haoyun could reply, Lan Lu immediately interrupted with an irrelevant comment. Then he looked at Sikong Chen and asked, "What do you think, Leader Sikong?" Sikong Chen's face was expressionless, but his eyes were deep. After seeing Lan Lu's gaze, he was silent for a few seconds before saying, "This zombie emperor seems to have gone berserk, and its energy seems to have risen to another level. Although we haven't met any other zombie emperors, this lightning-type zombie seems to have surpassed the standard of ordinary zombie emperors." His meaning was clear. It wasn't that Wu Qingyue was willing to go, but that he couldn't suppress the zombie emperor, so he had no choice but to go. This is a berserk zombie emperor? Will its lethality increase by another level? Then how can we avoid its lethality when it's awake? Is there a way to prevent it from going berserk? Miss Lu, what do you think? Lan Lu said, as if he was treating the zombie emperor like a mad dog. Then he pulled Lin Xiao, who was trying her best to be a pretty face, down with a smile on her face. Lin Xiao glanced at him coldly. Couldn't he just let her watch the show quietly? Ever since this guy came, he had been looking at her with unknown intentions. Now he was pulling her out. Did he want her to expose herself? After throwing a cold glance at Lan Lu, she swept her gaze over the crowd. Sure enough, everyone's gazes were directed at her. Sikong Chen and the other two were a little confused and doubtful, while the others looked at Lin Xiao with anticipation and thought. After all, Lin Xiao had left the city wall. Besides Lan Lu, Lu Jinan, Hong Yijie, and the others also noticed. Therefore, they all thought that this woman had gone to watch the battle. Why are you asking me? I don't know much about the zombie emperor, so what can I think? I thought that with the three of us, we would be able to take care of the zombie emperor. I didn't think that I would underestimate it. How about you join us next time? Maybe your spirit type will be useful against the zombie emperor. Why don't you try? Lin Xiao calmly threw the question back at him. She had only said that she had underestimated the zombie emperor, but she had subconsciously said that she had overestimated Sikong Chen and the others. Everyone present could hear the surface and underlying meaning, but no one dared to point it out. Because they were all leaders, they were not stupid enough to point out Lin Xiao's intentions. Sikong Chen's words were clearly directed at the zombie emperor. If they were to point it out, it would immediately turn into disdain towards the strength of Sikong Chen's trio. Hearing Lin Xiao's words, Sikong Chen and Gao Haoyun's eyes flickered as they looked at the blue continent. Although he wasn't very sure of Lin Xiao's words, it was still a feasible method. The smile on Lan Lu's face stiffened a little, but quickly returned to normal. Without changing his expression, he said, "If you need help, of course I'm willing to help." As for whether or not it would work, that was hard to say. After all, the mind of zombies isn't as complicated as that of humans. How would you know if you don't try? Don't you think that zombies are easy to kill because they are simple-minded? Could it be that you haven't used your ability on zombies before? Or are you saying that you only use it to deal with humans? Lin Xiao stared at him with a cold glint in her eyes and said with an indifferent smile, "Well, actually, I'm also curious. I think that Miss Lu's words are very likely. My subordinate has just awakened a spiritual-type psychic and has not participated in a combat mission. I wonder if it would work on zombies? Maybe we can let her try it when we get back." Seeing that Lin Xiao and Lan Lu were already exchanging a few words, Wu Chengyue felt a little jealous and interjected. Of course, what he said about a newly awakened psychic was all false. Emily was already a level 6 spiritual-type psychic. But when she went on a mission, she really didn't participate in any combat and usually stayed in the logistics department. Emily was Dr. Liang Dashu's assistant. Although she was an assistant, the two had worked together for a few years. Liang Dashu had always treated her like a student. Aside from virus research, he had also taught her everything in terms of medical treatment. Emily's ability wasn't weak to begin with. Plus, after awakening her spiritual-type psychic, her thinking was many times more active than ordinary people. So, she basically knew all of Liang Dashu's skills. So after Liang Dashu passed away, Molly took over all of Liang Dashu's work, including medical treatment. When she went on a mission with Wu Chengyue, she would act as a battlefield doctor in the logistics department. But Emily's ability was effective on zombies. It was just that Wu Chengyue was on Lin Xiao's side, so he didn't say it out loud. At the same time, he used Lin Xiao's words to stab Lan Lu in the back. "TSK, tisk, TSK, you haven't even gotten your hands on her yet, and you're already so brazenly protecting her. Is it really okay for you to be like this? You will make us old dogs jealous." Lan Lu looked at Wu Chengyue and then laughed helplessly. It looked like he was joking, but it was obvious that he wanted to change the topic. Old dogs, of course, were referring to the group of old single dogs. Originally, the people present were all scheming people. It was impossible for Lan Lu to change the topic so easily. But there was someone here who liked to scheme and not care about the big picture. Gao Haoyun looked at Lin Xiao with a greedy look in his eyes. But he quickly hid it and looked at Wu Chengyue with even more dissatisfaction and coldness. He glanced at Wu Chengyue and then suddenly smiled ambiguously and said to Lin Xiao, "That's right. Looking at Miss Lu's attitude towards Leader Wu, I think I have a higher chance." Or perhaps Miss Lu actually liked tall, strong men who gave her a sense of security? Am I right? He was obviously hinting that Wu Chengyue was too thin and not as tall as him, so he couldn't give Lin Xiao the sense of security she needed. On the other hand, he was hinting that Wu Chengyue might not be able to satisfy Lin Xiao in bed. After all, Wu Chengyue did look shorter than Gao Haoyun, and his body was slightly thinner. But Lin Xiao had seen Wu Chengyue's skinny body when he wore clothes, but when he took them off, he had a muscular body. As for the other aspect of his ability, she really didn't want to try it again. Thinking back to the time when she was tricked by Little Man in the spatial lake, Wu Chengyue's bravery and strength gave Lin Xiao quite a bit of psychological resistance. But at this time, Lin Xiao only wanted to throw one word at Gao Haoyun: idiot. He actually followed up Lan Lu's words and led the topic to her. "What the hell are you doing here? It's fine if you want to get rid of the zombie emperor, but why don't you think about how to deal with the virus in your body? You're about to die, but you still have the leisure to tease me. If he isn't an idiot, then what is?" Chapter 800. Hearing Gao Haoyun's ambiguous words, a cold light flashed in Wu Chengyue's eyes. He glanced at Lin Xiao, but did not speak immediately. He felt that if he opened his mouth at this time, it might make this female zombie even more unhappy with him. Sure enough, before he opened his mouth, The female zombie sneered and retorted, I also don't like people who look good but are useless. You can't even protect your own base, and can only protect yourself by hiding in someone else's base. How dare you say such things here? What's the use of being tall and strong? You can't even protect your own base and run to someone else's base for protection. So what if you have a rank 8 ability? Isn't it still useless? Gao Haoyun's face darkened. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He looked at Lin Xiao with a hint of murderous intent. This woman dared to mock him in front of so many base leaders, saying that he looked good but was useless. Gao Haoyun immediately became angry. His face instantly became gloomy. Without waiting for him to speak, Lin Xiao continued with a sneer. What? Did I say something wrong? Why don't everyone talk about it? The Black Dragon base has a lot of people, and the number of ability users is also not small. When everyone clearly still had the ability to fight, as the strongest person in the Black Dragon base, the rank 8 ice ability user, was the first to escape in a helicopter. I never knew that the leader of the Black Dragon base, Gao Haoyun, was such a coward. After her 2 calls, everyone's gazes at Gao Haoyun and Lin Xiao became more interested. Gao Haoyun was indeed a rank 8 ability user, other than Xikong Chun, Wu Qingyue, and Lan Lu, whose strength was unknown. No one else was his opponent. But what Lin Xiao said was also right. Gao Haoyun did not think about how to break through when the Black Dragon base was besieged. He did not even make a move and directly escaped in a helicopter. This kind of personality was indeed a bit cowardly, causing others to look down on him. Now everyone felt that even if Du Kuanxing's personality was a bit dark and his methods were a bit shady, but he had been guarding the Black Dragon base until now, and also protected the lives of so many survivors. Everyone clearly felt that Du Kuanxing's courage and strategy was more suitable to be a leader than Gao Haoyun. You shut up. Gao Haoyun finally gritted his teeth. He stared fiercely at Lin Xiao, and the killing intent in his eyes could not be concealed. For what? You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it? Lin Xiao sneered and looked back at Gao Haoyun without fear. When the others saw that Gao Haoyun was crushed by Lin Xiao's words, they all looked at Lin Xiao in surprise. He then turned to look at Xikong Chun, wanting to know what he was thinking. Xikong Chun sat expressionlessly, his eyes a little dark. But he obviously didn't want to speak now, so he kept his mouth shut. All right, the most important thing right now is to deal with this zombie emperor. It had only been 6 years, and there were already zombie emperors. It wouldn't be long before the number of zombie emperors increased as well. At that time, all the survivor bases will be in more danger. At this time, Wu Qingyue immediately opened his mouth and forcefully changed the topic. Fisk, what do you think the zombie emperor is? You think you can just casually appear? Gao Haoyun sneered as he looked at Wu Qingyue. His eyes showed that he did not believe Wu Qingyue's words at all. Well, as far as I know, right now, there are already a lot of second-rank kings at the 7th rank. Who knew when one of them would successfully break through? That's really possible, Lan Lu said with a smile as he continued. Plus, there are quite a few second-rank kings around this zombie emperor. Their combined destructive power is not any less than that of a zombie emperor. As he spoke, he looked at Xikong Chun, because the 3 of them had already met the zombie emperor. They should also know about the situation of the second-rank kings around the zombie emperor. One second-rank king might be easy to deal with, but if there were several of them together, it was just as Lan Lu said, it would not be that easy to deal with. Xikong Chun was also racking his brains, but he did not know how to deal with the zombie emperor. Especially now that he had fought with the zombie emperor, he had seen how powerful it was. Thinking about it now, the previous plan did not work at all. Even Xikong Li could not do anything, let alone the strength of others. The humans could not think of any way to deal with the zombie emperor. On the other hand, after Mo Yin suddenly emptied his body of energy, he entered a very weak state. This was not referring to his body being weak, but his zombie core being weak. Mo Yin felt that his zombie core could no longer store energy. Ever since the battle with the 3 humans, the energy he absorbed from the zombie core could not be stored in his zombie core. They were all sucked in and then slowly exhaled. Since his zombie core could no longer store energy. He could no longer use his abilities. Therefore, the current Mo Yin was like an ordinary zombie without abilities. He only had the aura and pressure of a level 8 zombie emperor, but no martial power. Roar dash, get out. Don't come near me. At this moment, Mo Yin had locked himself in a room and was yelling at his underlings outside. The weakening of his strength made him feel a great sense of crisis, and it wasn't just toward outsiders. Not only to his subordinates, but also to his subordinates. If they knew that he could not beat them, they might turn around and attack him. Even if they followed him for a long time, these zombies did not have emotions. If it was not for Mo Yin using his powerful martial power to suppress them, they would have run away long ago. If they knew that they couldn't beat them now, these zombies would probably rebel immediately. After Mo Yin roared, the surrounding zombies all stayed tens of meters away from the room he was in. Although they were confused as to why their boss wanted them to stay away, they did not find anything wrong with Mo Yin. Roar dash go. Lead the zombies to attack. You guys take the lead and attack. At this time, Mo Yin roared again and ordered. The 5 level 2 kings looked at each other from a distance of more than 10 meters. After hesitating for a few seconds, they all left. At the same time, the people in China's base had temporarily ended the meeting and returned to their own places to rest. As soon as Lin Xiao came out of the meeting room, she was stopped by a figure. Gao Haoyun's originally masculine face was now covered with a haze. He stared at her eyes and said, "Woman, just you wait. I will let you know if I have the ability or not. At least in bed, I can fuck you to death." After saying that, his eyes swept up and down Lin Xiao's body. Then he turned around and left with an evil smile. Lin Xiao's expression did not change as he watched him leave. Then he calmly continued to walk towards his temporary resting room. Wu Chungyue, who had just walked out with Lan Lu, looked at Gao Haoyun's back with a smile on his face, but his eyes flashed with coldness. Then he looked at Lin Xiao and withdrew his gaze. Chapter 801. At this time, Lin Kuei had brought 2 zombies to the main clan, but he took advantage of the darkness to stand on the wall and sniff for a long time, but he still couldn't find Ling Jing's scent. Lin Kuei's heart sank, but he didn't give up and sneaked into the main clan's base to continue searching. There were fewer people in the main clan's base, so the area was much smaller. Lin Kuei quickly searched around, but still couldn't find Ling Jing, not even a trace of her scent. This meant that Ling Jing had never been to the main clan. Could it be that the woman lied to the female zombie? Lin Kuei started to doubt the words of Ling Jing's neighbor. Lin Xiao didn't enter the space that night. She pretended to sleep in her room. When she pretended to be around 4 o'clock in the middle of the night, she suddenly felt the temperature in the room drop sharply, and a chill rushed in. Lin Xiao was very sensitive to heat, but she didn't feel much about cold. So even if the chill spread from the floor of the door, Lin Xiao wouldn't feel cold. But she still quietly sat up, just sitting on the simple bed, and quietly watched the ice crawl all the way to the foot of the bed. Lin Xiao's body flashed, and she flashed to the chair next to her, folding her legs and sitting on the chair. In the darkness, she saw the ice on the floor was a cold white color, and quickly turned the entire bed into an ice sculpture. At this time, a light sound came from the door, and then the door was opened. Lin Xiao sneered in her heart. They were finally here. It was worth it for her to send Duan Wan and Shun Yuzhen away. In the darkness, the door was gently pushed open, and a tall figure flashed in. The person stepped on the ice toward the bed in the darkness, but when he approached the bed, he suddenly froze. "What? You think you can freeze me like this? Aren't you looking down on me a little? In any case, I'm also a rank 7 metahuman, right?" Lin Xiao calmly sat on the chair and said coldly. The person standing beside the bed suddenly turned around, and a gloomy voice came from the darkness. "I didn't expect you to actually dodge it. You have some skill." As he said that, he suddenly waved his hand, and an ice beam was thrown in Lin Xiao's direction. Lin Xiao, who was sitting steadily on the chair, flashed and disappeared from the chair. Pooh! The ice beam landed on the chair, instantly freezing it into an ice sculpture. "Oomph, you're courting death." Lin Xiao snorted coldly. Originally, this guy could live for a while longer by suppressing the virus in his body. She didn't expect that this guy would dare to provoke her. Now, that M.O. Yin didn't want his life. She would take it first. "You? Do you think that your little poison ability can do anything to me?" Gao Haoyun sneered disdainfully. Then, a layer of ice immediately formed around his body. It was obviously to prevent Lin Xiao from suddenly using his poison-type arcana. "TCH, you're wrong." Lin Xiao merely chuckled. Then, with a flash, he disappeared. When she completely disappeared from the room, Gao Haoyun was obviously stunned. Before he could react, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. Then, he was pushed by someone, and his vision blurred. Then, Gao Haoyun also disappeared. Just as the two of them disappeared from Lin Xiao's house, another figure appeared at the door. Wu Chunyue gently closed the door, then leaned against the wall and waited quietly. At this moment, Gao Haoyun only felt his vision blurred. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. The originally dark room had now turned into a dimly lit forest in the blink of an eye. The light in the forest was very dim. It was like a cloudy day without the sun. In the dense forest, most of the light was covered by the shade of the trees. Gao Haoyun looked around the unfamiliar surroundings in bewilderment. For a moment, he couldn't figure out what was going on. Whoosh! Suddenly, a shadow quickly flashed behind him. There was a subtle sound of wind breaking. Gao Haoyun fiercely turned his head and looked around vigilantly. What is this place? Why did he appear here? These two questions were what everyone who was thrown in by Lin Xiao would subconsciously think about. Gao Haoyun immediately thought about the scene just now. He was fighting with that woman in the house. Then, that woman suddenly disappeared. Then, he inexplicably appeared here. Moreover, he was suddenly pushed by someone. It was from behind. Why did that woman just disappear? This question flashed through his mind. It gave Gao Haoyun a faint sense of foreboding. He stood in the same place and looked around. Soon, he found that the surrounding trees were very strange. Every single one of them looked exactly the same. Moreover, these trees were very tall. He couldn't see the top when he raised his head. He also didn't see any light coming from the top. These trees looked exactly the same. Gao Haoyun couldn't tell which direction was north, south, east, and west. This made him feel a wave of depression and irritation. His eyebrows tightly knitted together. Gao Haoyun raised his head to look at the top. Then, he bent his legs and jumped up the tree beside him. Then, he continued to jump up. He wanted to jump out of the top of the tree to see what this place was. He could see far if he stood high up. Just as Gao Haoyun jumped up the tree, a shadow flashed on the ground below. Then, a curled-up mushroom head popped out from behind a tree trunk. The mushroom spirit bent its twigs. Its face had a curious expression as it stared at the place where Gao Haoyun jumped up. After Gao Haoyun jumped up, the top of the tall tree was covered by a layer of white fog. Moreover, these trees were actually very tall. The higher he went, the thicker the white fog became. Even the surrounding leaves and branches were blocked. When he jumped to the top of the thick white fog, he found that he couldn't jump up. This layer of white mist was like a barrier, tightly pressing down on him. Gao Haoyun tried several times, but couldn't go up. He began to use his ability. The ice ability could freeze the white fog in front of him into pieces of ice. However, when he swung his hand, he found that his ability was also suppressed. However, he found that his special ability was also suppressed. He couldn't use 20% of his energy at all. Gao Haoyun was shocked. After trying a few times on the tree, it didn't have any effect. He immediately jumped down from the tree. He felt that the fog above was very strange. It could actually suppress the energy of his ability. He thought that after he went down, his ability would be fine. However, when Gao Haoyun landed on the ground, he found that his ability was still suppressed. How could this be? That woman. It must be that woman. Gao Haoyun's mind was a little flustered. The inability to use his ability made him feel a strong sense of crisis. His mind flashed. Chapter 802. Outside the forest, Lin Xiao didn't respond to Gao Haoyun's shouts. She just stood at the edge of the forest and raised her hand. She continued to control the power in the space to suppress the entire forest. When the zombies in the space saw Lin Xiao come in and stared at the forest with murderous intent, they immediately understood that she had brought an enemy in again. He immediately understood that she had brought the enemy in again and was preparing to exhaust them to death. Who was it this time? Lu Tianyi crossed his arms in front of his chest and leaned against the railing of the balcony on the second floor. Oh, next to him, a half-grown tiger was lying on the platform above the railing. It was bored and opened its mouth, revealing 4 sharp teeth. After a yawn, it lazily swung its tail. The people playing cards on the stairs stopped playing, and the bored one sitting on the stairs stopped counting ants. They all stared at the forest curiously, but they didn't move over. Looking at them, it seemed like each of them was holding a handful of melon seeds and munching on them. Jing Yin sat on the edge of the balcony on the second floor of the building next to Lu Tianyi's. She bent her long legs and leaned against the wall, looking in the direction of the forest expressionlessly. Suddenly, Lu Tianyi held a stone in his hand and threw it at a crouching insect in the vegetable field in front of the building. Pesticide. If you try to eat my cucumbers again, I will beat you to death. He stared coldly at the figure and scolded it. Pesticide, who was in the vegetable field, stiffened. Then, he quietly reached out and grabbed a green worm from the cucumber vine. He turned around and looked at Lu Tianyi, then threw the worm in his hand into his mouth. I'm here to catch worms. Everyone was used to eating worms, so they didn't have much of a reaction. Only Lu Tianyi looked at Pesticide with disdain. Then, he turned his head and continued to look in the direction of the forest. Awoo. Wang ran to Lu Tianyi's balcony and sat on the ground. He raised his head and barked at the little tiger lying on the edge of the balcony. The little tiger turned its head and looked at Wang. Then it moved its head back in disdain. It rested its chin on its front paws and swung its tail from time to time. Suddenly, a shadow rushed out of the forest. Wang, who was under the balcony, immediately turned around and left the little tiger behind. Oh, the mushroom spirit is out, Lu Tianyi said as he watched the mushroom spirit swing its root-like legs towards him like the wind. All the zombies cast their eyes on the mushroom spirit and then quickly moved away, because they knew that this guy wouldn't stop in front of them. Sure enough, the mushroom spirit ran over in a hurry and ran past the empty space in front of the 3 buildings. When it ran over, Wang jumped happily and chased after the mushroom spirit. Thus, the 2 of them circled around the vegetable field in front of them and then burrowed into the large bushes behind the vegetable field. In less than 2 seconds, a black snake head the size of a water bucket emerged from the grass. Then, the snake head rose higher and higher until its thick and long snake neck was stretched out. But soon, the snake lowered its head again and disappeared into the tall grass. The zombies were already used to this scene, so they just glanced at it and calmly looked away. Then, they continued to stare at the forest. At this time, the trees around Gao Haoyun were frozen into ice sculptures. He rushed to the tree next to him and jumped up to kick the frozen tree trunk. However, the tree trunk didn't move. If it was an ordinary tree frozen by Gao Haoyun's level 8 ice special ability, a light blow would be enough to shatter it into ice shards. But at this time, his ice special ability was useless. Damn woman, come out. Bitch. Gao Haoyun was anxious and confused. He shouted angrily for a long time, but the woman didn't appear. He started to run in a direction, but no matter how long he ran, the surrounding trees were the same. He couldn't see the end. The more time passed, the more irritated he became. He couldn't calmly analyze the situation around him. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to leave this place. Once he left this place, his special ability would recover. He wanted to leave this damned place. But after running for a long time, his whole body was gasping for breath, and his special ability was depleting more and more. He still couldn't run out of the forest. Gao Haoyun even forgot about the zombie virus in his body. He didn't know when he forgot to suppress the location of the virus, and then the virus began to spread throughout his body. Hoo-hoo-hoo! After running for a while, Gao Haoyun suddenly felt cold all over his body, and his hands and feet began to lose strength. He stopped running and bent down with his hands on his legs. Because the light in the forest was dim, he didn't notice that his fingers were a bit black. You can't run, and you can't live. At this time, Lin Xiao's voice suddenly sounded around him. Gao Haoyun suddenly stood up, and with a ferocious face, he looked around and scolded, "You damn bitch! Come out if you have the ability. Do you think you can kill me by bringing me here? I don't need to kill you. You're going to be killed by the virus. Didn't you notice?" Lin Xiao still didn't show himself, but his mocking voice could be clearly heard. Hearing the word virus, Gao Haoyun suddenly froze, and then his heart suddenly jumped. He finally realized that he didn't know when he let go of the suppression on the wound, and now the virus might have already spread throughout his body. No wonder his body was so cold. He was an ice element, so how could he feel cold? After realizing this, Gao Haoyun's heart turned cold, and his whole body seemed to be frozen. He slowly raised his hand and looked at his 10 fingers. Under the dim light, he could see the black color of his fingernails. Just as he was in a daze, a black flame floated behind him, and then suddenly covered his head. Whoa! Gao Haoyun's strange scream was only halfway out, and then it suddenly stopped. After the black flame covered his head, it burned with a bang, and then quickly spread to the bottom of his body. After a few seconds, there was only an icy blue energy core that fell where Gao Haoyun was. His whole body had already disappeared. Lin Xiao jumped down from the tree next to him and bent down to pick up the energy core. In the end, when Gao Haoyun was infected by the virus, he no longer had the ability to resist her dark fire. If it wasn't for this level 8 energy core, Lin Xiao could completely let him die on his own and eventually become a zombie. But that would be a waste of an energy core. After all, when he died, the energy core would lose its energy and then become a normal zombie. Chapter 803. When Lin Xiao reappeared in the room, she looked at the person leaning against the door and asked, "What are you doing in my room?" Wu Chengyue stood in the dark room and shrugged his shoulders, "Waiting for you." Lin Xiao narrowed her eyes and looked at him. It seems like this person knew that Gao Haoyun had come in. Wu Chengyue saw that she came out safely and immediately turned around to open the door. Before leaving, he looked at Lin Xiao deeply. She came out unscathed, which meant that Gao Haoyun must have been killed. A rank 7 zombie took an hour to kill a rank 8 metahuman. It seems like this female zombie's strength was not as simple as an ordinary rank 7 zombie king. And looking at the other party's relaxed appearance, her space was obviously her trump card. It seems like he had to reevaluate her strength. Although he knew that Gao Haoyun could not defeat her, he was still surprised that he was dealt with so quickly. Lin Xiao looked at Wu Chengyue's back and was confused. Since this man appeared here, he must have known that Gao Haoyun was here. But he only came when she brought Gao Haoyun into the space, so he did not intend to help her deal with Gao Haoyun. The other party seemed to believe in her strength, but he was not at ease. Was that why he came to her room to wait? What a contradictory man. Not long after, the sky brightened up. Sikong Chun, who just got up and wiped his face, heard a hurried knock on the door. "Leader, the zombie tide's attack changed again." Ho Wuzhong stood at the door and reported with a serious expression. Not only did Sikong Chun receive the news, everyone else also received the news. Lei Chung from the Blue Continent said with an expressionless face, "The other party sent an Earth Element rank 2 king to close the crack that Lu Jinan made." The tide of zombies immediately rushed to the bottom of the wall, and this time, it wasn't just the ordinary zombies attacking. There are also mutants, leaders, and kings. On the other side, Wu Chengyue had just laid down and was about to fall asleep when Xiao Liqing woke him up. He sat on the bed and rubbed his temples while listening to Xiao Liqing's report. The attack this time is very fast, and there are many powerful zombies. Looks like the high-level mutants in Huaxia won't be idle this time, Xiao Liqing said. Looks like the zombie emperor is getting serious this time. I wonder what kind of expression he will have when he finds out that his target has been secretly killed. Wu Qingyue suddenly opened his eyes and smirked. I think he's going to get even with Miss Lu, right? Xiao Liqing said uncertainly. That Gao Haoyun was courting death. Of all the people he could have provoked, he had to provoke that female zombie leader. You wanted to tease her just because you saw that she was good-looking, and you even dared to run into her room in the middle of the night. Aren't you courting death? Look at one of China's directors. He was killed in front of everyone just by touching her hand. He might not even know how he died. Thinking about it, not just anyone could pluck a beautiful flower like Miss Lu. This was a domineering, man-eating flower. Their boss only dared to circle around the flowers and didn't even dare to touch them. These people dared to reach their hands in the flower plate. They must have grown teeth. On Lin Xiao's side, Duan Wan knocked on her door. The movement from the zombie tide is very big this time. The fissure has also been closed. Looks like the zombie kings around the zombie emperor have made a move. Of course, he's going to make a big move this time because there's a problem with his zombie core. Right now, his energy is not berserk, but his emotions are restless. Lin Xiao nodded calmly. Say, if he knows that Gao Haoyun died in your hands, how will he react? Duan Wan asked curiously. Lin Xiao shrugged and said, I think he'll make a scene, but no matter how big a scene he makes, she has the ability to subdue him. Then should we go out and watch the battle? Duan Wan asked. Lin Xiao nodded. Let's wait for a while. Sikong Chen should have the appropriate arrangements. Duan Wan nodded in understanding. Not long after, as expected, there were people from Huaxia rushing over to invite Lin Xiao to help defend against the zombie tide at the west gate. Where are the others? Lin Xiao asked. She had already cleared the layer of ice in the room, so there was nothing wrong with the room other than some wet water stains on the floor. The person who came to invite her said, Our leader is at the south gate, Leader Wu from Haicheng is at the east gate, and Qingshan Base's Lanlu director is at the north gate. There's also one of our base's directors assisting at each gate. Originally, we wanted to invite Gao Haoyun to the west gate, but we haven't found him yet, so we can only invite Miss Lu to help defend with Director Wei. Director Wei? Wei Haichao, right? Lin Xiao nodded, and her eyes flashed. Fortunately, it wasn't that Lu Jinan, otherwise she might not be able to get along with him. On the other side, Sikong Chan frowned. Gao Haoyun disappeared by himself? At this time, where can he disappear to? Gao Haoyun's sudden disappearance made him feel a trace of annoyance. This person really knows how to cause trouble. Now, when they needed his strength as a level 8 metahuman, he disappeared. Could it be that he has some relationship with Miss Lu? He seems to care a lot about that woman. Ho Guizhong said with some hesitation. Did that woman also disappear? Sikong Chen's expression froze. Ho Guizhong shook his head. No, when I sent someone to inform her, she was indeed in the room. Sikong Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly, and he said, since she didn't disappear with him, it should have nothing to do with her. Continue to send people everywhere to find him. Yes, Ho Guizhong nodded. When Lin Xiao rushed to the west gate with Duan Wan and other subordinates, she saw that the gate was blocked by all kinds of plants, and the wall was also covered with all kinds of vines. In the open space in front of the wall, many trees also grew out of thin air. The entire area around the west gate was filled with green and vitality. It seemed that this was the work of Director Wei. But soon, Lin Xiao found that she was wrong, because this was not just Wei Haichao's work. When she reached the top of the wall, she saw Wei Haichao with a large group of natural plant metahumans, releasing their abilities together. From time to time, they would scatter some seeds. The zombies below were surging, and from time to time, a few of them would jump out from the zombie horde, throwing random ability attacks at the humans. But all of them were blocked by the moving vines on the wall. At this time, a huge bird with a large shadow and a hurricane flew over their heads. A dash! Just as the big bird flew over, someone immediately screamed. Everyone looked up and saw that the bird had taken away a person under its claws. Chapter 804. The giant bird left, as quickly as it came. With two flaps of its huge wings, it was already a few hundred meters away. When it flew out, the person under its claws was immediately torn into two pieces and thrown into the crowd of zombies. Even if Lin Xiao wanted to save him, it would be useless. Lin Xiao stood at the edge of the city wall. She didn't greet Wei Haichao and the others. She waved her hand, and a black fog immediately spread out from her hand. As the wind blew, the area of the black fog became larger and larger. Lin Xiao controlled the black fog to fly over the grass and trees on the city wall. It fell in front of the zombies like a layer of black sand. Black fog? Is she poisonous? Seeing the sudden appearance of Lin Xiao's black fog, Wei Haichao turned his head to look at her. Thinking about how the female leader attacked Hu Jiong without any hesitation in the meeting room, although Hu Jiong was in the wrong, this woman was too domineering. Does her poison have any effect on these zombies? Wei Haichao couldn't help but have some doubts. He stared at the black fog in front of him as it expanded and then descended, covering the heads of the zombies below. Then he saw the zombies that were covered obviously paused, and then they all fell down at the same time. Wei Haichao's expression immediately changed. He was shocked to see the black fog directly cover a large number of zombies, and then it began to push forward. Those zombies were all pushed down. As long as they touched the black fog, they would all fall to the ground in less than 2 seconds. Then Wei Haichao discovered that the zombies' corpses that fell to the ground in front of him were emitting wisps of black gas. Then the corpses melted one by one, turning into puddles of black water. After so many days of defending, the ground was covered with a thick layer of zombie corpses. Even standing on a city wall that was more than 10 to 20 meters high, one could smell a strong, rotting smell mixed with the smell of gunpowder. But at this time, on the open space that was more than 1,000 meters wide, these smelly corpses were melted into puddles of water. One could imagine how terrifying the poison of the black fog was. With the advancement of Lin Xiao's black fog, basically no zombies could break through a black fog and rush over. Therefore, because the people on the wall had no target to attack, they all stopped. At this time, Mo Yin, who had locked himself in the room, had calmed down under the female zombie's treatment. The female zombie retracted her hand, and then stood beside him quietly looking at him. Mo Yin sat on the bed with his head lowered and his waist bent, maintaining this position without moving. This was an ordinary hotel. After 5 or 6 years of neglect, the room was covered in dust. The bed that Mo Yin was sitting on was still the same one that the female zombie had flipped over. She pressed the dusty side down and flipped the clean side up. Mo Yin raised his head and looked at the female zombie. His face was covered with strange black lines. It looked like lightning, but also like the lines of blood vessels. A pair of long and narrow eyes were filled with a gloomy black, but the original purple pupils in the middle were no longer purple, as if they had been swallowed by the full black. Roar, you won't betray me, right? He stared at the female zombie's beautiful face and moved his beautiful but pale lips. The female zombie's black eyes flashed with silver light. She didn't say anything and just looked at him quietly. She didn't know what betrayal was. She only knew that he was the emperor that she recognized, so he would always be her emperor. As long as the emperor didn't chase her away, she would never leave. Thinking about this, she bent one of her legs and kneeled in front of Mo Yin. She looked up at his eyes expressionlessly. Mo Yin looked at her silently and didn't say anything for a long time. The female zombie kept kneeling like this. She didn't get up until he said anything. After a long time, a faint purple light flashed in Mo Yin's black eyes, and he said, "Get up, don't dirty your dress." The female zombie immediately stood up, bent down, and patted the hem of her skirt to clean the part that had just touched the ground. On the rooftop of a building not far away from the hotel, where Mo Yin and the other two were staying, a rank 1 king beast stealthily hid itself and quickly left. Not long after, this level 1 king ran to the east gate and found another level 2 king. Roar, the emperor's situation was not right. He had become weaker. That level 2 king was a male zombie. From his intact face, it could be seen that he was a man around 30 years old. His looks were not bad. He was tough and handsome with a tall and straight body. After hearing the report from the rank 1 king, the sharp eyes of the rank 2 king lit up as he raised his eyebrows. He raised his eyebrows and said to the level 1 king in a low voice, "Woo." He didn't become stronger? The level 1 king nodded. The level 2 king's eyes flashed and thought for a while before saying, "Roar," to continue observing. "Roar." The level 1 king responded and quietly left. The level 2 king looked back at the direction of a human gate and suddenly roared, "Roar." After he roared, the zombies under the building immediately became restless and desperately rushed towards the human base. After roaring, the level 2 king lowered his head and stretched out his hands towards the direction of the human base and began to release his special ability. The people on the wall were shocked by the shaking under their feet. It felt like an earthquake. Not good. The opponent's Earth Element King is making a move. Lu Jinan's expression became serious. He suddenly squatted down and pressed his hands on the ground. He also released his special ability and began to suppress the surging energy under the ground. At this moment, a few huge fireballs were thrown out and a figure flashed out from the wall. "I will go deal with that level 2 king." Sikong Chin's voice came from afar. The leader of the zombies had finally appeared. It would be best to kill every level 2 king he saw. With this thought in mind, Sikong Chan rushed towards the level 2 king at the back of the zombie group. While the battle between the Chinese base and the zombies had finally changed, the people in the human base were still living their lives peacefully. Every day, they would work, eat, sleep, and collect points and food. Lu Tong, on the other hand, was thinking about how to get close to Yuan Tianqing. The first step had been taken, so it was time for the second step. At this time, he was lying on the bed in the medical department, thinking about how to carry out the second step. The first step had already caught Yuan Tianqing's attention, so the second and third step would slowly attract Yuan Tianqing's attention. However, Lu Tong didn't want Yuan Tianqing to pay too much attention to him. It would be best if he just met Yuan Tianqing a few times, but was not familiar with him. Chapter 805. In fact, Lu Tong did not really like Yuan Tianqing. All he wanted was to use Yuan Tianqing's identity and position to give himself a stable space. He was just a space esper and was once an ordinary person with a rather weak physique. In order to survive in the harsh environment of the apocalypse, he did not have enough skills to protect himself, so he could only seek protection from others. Once he felt better, Lu Tong left the medical department. He knew that Yuan Tianqing was working in the office every day, even eating and resting in the office. Other than the occasional inspection at the construction site, he would not step out of the office for a few days. It would be very difficult to approach him like this, because he couldn't brazenly go to his office, and the deputy leader's office wasn't a place that just anyone could enter. Lu Tong thought about it and decided to use the old method. After waiting for 2 days, he finally saw Yuan Tianqing come out of the office building at night. As his place was not far from the office building, Yuan Tianqing only had to walk for about 10 minutes with Lu Junjie and the rest. Lu Tong held a brick in his hand behind his back and found a path that Yuan Tianqing would definitely pass by. He did not run to the middle of the road, but to a corner not far away. He looked in the direction of Yuan Tianqing and the rest. He then tore his clothes into a mess, turned his head to look at the brick in his hand, and took a deep breath. Following that, a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes as he smashed the brick on his head. He hit the side of his head, neither his forehead nor the back of his head. The wound on the side could only be guessed that someone else had smashed it. Ugh! Lu Tong let out a muffled groan. Before he lost consciousness, he tossed the brick aside. He fell to the ground, letting the blood flow down from his forehead. The spot he chose was neither too far nor too close. It seemed to be a little remote, but the distance was just enough for him to be discovered. Because Yuan Tianqing had strong observation skills, it was impossible for him to not notice someone lying on the ground when he passed by. Even if he did not notice, his subordinates behind him would have seen it. Lu Tong's plan was very good. He would pretend to be knocked out and be discovered by Yuan Tianqing. Once Yuan Tianqing found out that he was knocked out, he would definitely not sit by and do nothing. After he saved himself, he would definitely recognize him as the person who fainted after saving someone at the construction site a few days ago. He believed that the scene at the construction site would definitely gain Yuan Tianqing's favor. Therefore, after saving him this time, he would definitely care a little about it. This was the second step of Lu Tong's plan, which was to let Yuan Tianqing save him. Then, the third step would be for him to approach him openly under the banner of gratitude. However, what Lu Tong didn't know was that Lin Wenwen and Long Qingying, who had been staring at him from the rooftop, had seen everything. Just as he fainted, a figure flashed down from upstairs, then grabbed him by his clothes and lifted him up, disappearing on the spot. You really can do it. For a person to be so cruel to himself, his thoughts are really big. Lin Wenwen slightly lowered his head and looked at the people Long Qingying had brought up and thrown onto the ground. A sharp light flashed in his eyes as he sneered. Long Qingying said expressionlessly, "The deputy leader will be passing by soon. With his observation skills, even if he doesn't pay much attention, he will still notice him. Then he will save him." Lin Wenwen said, "I thought he would directly bump into Brother Tianqing at the construction site a few days ago. I didn't expect that he was just putting on a show to get into Brother Tianqing's good books. This time, he's really serious. Seems like his plan is quite thorough." A few days ago, he had put on a show to save someone, and Yuan Tianqing only took a look at him from afar to get into Brother Tianqing's good books. Now, he was ruthless enough to knock himself out with a rock. This kind of mentality was really too deep. But he's a bit too impatient. It's only been a few days, and he already got himself in front of the deputy leader. Isn't he afraid that the deputy leader will suspect him? Long Qingying said indifferently, with a hint of confusion in her voice. Lin Wenwen smiled and said, "He's very confident. I think he probably thinks that Brother Tianqing won't suspect him so quickly. What's his purpose in approaching the deputy leader like this?" Long Qingying looked at the person on the ground curiously, not caring about the bleeding head of the person. A hint of disdain flashed across Lin Wenwen's eyes. He just wants to find someone to rely on to establish a foothold in this base. But this method seems a bit too disgusting. Thinking back to the scene in her mind, Lu Tong didn't seem to have any other plans other than taking off Yuan Tianqing's clothes and pressing him on top of him, who was also naked. Now that she thought about it, this Lu Tong might be trying to get close to Yuan Tianqing and get into Brother Tianqing's good books at the same time. Then he planned to make Yuan Tianqing feel guilty towards him and protect him in the future. But that was just an illusion and not the reality. She didn't know what that scene indicated and what it represented. This time, it was different from the time Lin Wenwen had personally witnessed Lin Feng being pierced by the metal vines. That time, Lin Wenwen had seen it for himself. But why did she suddenly go back to a few hours ago? This was something Lin Wenwen couldn't figure out recently. Disgusting? Long Qingying didn't know what kind of image Lin Wenwen was seeing in her mind. She looked at Lu Tong with a confused expression. Although this Lu Tong's methods were a bit shady, it didn't seem to be disgusting. At most, people would think that he was a cunning person. But Long Qingying sensed that Lin Wenwen didn't seem to be referring to what Lu Tong was doing now. And as soon as he came back, Lin Wenwen suddenly targeted this person. Why? They had been collecting supplies outside, and this Lu Tong was the second batch of survivors to come in. They shouldn't have met before. But as soon as Lin Wenwen came back, he suddenly asked her to investigate this person. How did she know that this Lu Tong had bad intentions towards Yuan Tianqing? Could it be that she happened to see something on the day she came back? Long Qingying's brain was never as flexible as Lin Wenwen's, and there were many things she couldn't figure out. But she wouldn't question anything Lin Wenwen said now. As long as it was what she said, Long Qingying would believe it. Lin Wenwen looked at Lu Tong and said, "Let's go. You will understand in the future." As she spoke, she walked towards the stairway. Long Qingying looked at the unconscious Lu Tong on the ground and asked, "What should we do with him?" Lin Wenwen waved his hand as he walked. "Find a place with people and quietly throw him away." What he meant was to throw him somewhere with people and let them find him and send him to the hospital. Long Qingying immediately picked him up and jumped down from the edge of the roof. Below them, Yuan Tianxing led his men past the place where Lu Tong directed and acted on his own without noticing anything. He strode toward his own residence. Chapter 806. The battle in China lasted for another 2 days. The humans had rank 8 metahumans, so even if the zombies attacked fiercely, they would not be able to break through the attacks of the rank 8 metahumans. Sikong Chun joined forces with Lu Jinan's Earth ability, 1 Earth and 1 Fire, fighting against the opponent's King Zombie. The ground in front of the base had already been destroyed, and flames were burning everywhere. Under Sikong Chen's intense heat, the zombie horde below was burnt to ashes. Even so, it was not enough to stop the zombie horde's attack. On the other hand, Wu Qinyue raised his hand and released a large amount of lightning, working together with a water element member of China's base to defend against the zombie horde. The water element member directly flooded the area below the wall, drawing all the water from the nearby river and controlling it in front of the wall. It was like washing the floor, rushing here and there. When the zombies came into contact with water, they would immediately stop moving and be washed away by the water. At this time, Wu Qinyue released another wave of lightning, and when the lightning met the water, the zombies were immediately electrocuted. On the other hand, the scene on Lan Lu's side was a bit more brutal because a large number of the zombies below the wall were headless and blown up. The one who did this was Lan Lu, who is thought to be of unknown strength. Hong Yijie saw that Lan Lu only closed his eyes, and the zombies below suddenly had their heads explode like watermelons. This was a bit horrifying. So it turns out that spirit-type metahumans can directly explode the zombies' heads. Spirit-type metahumans have always been hard to awaken, and there were very few of them. Although it was impossible for there to be none in the entire China base, Hong Yijie had never come into contact with these spirit-type metahumans, so he did not understand their attacking methods. On the other side, Lin Xiao was much more relaxed. The black mist did not require much energy and effort from her. With just a thought, the black mist would automatically seek out the zombies and devour their energy and bodies. The natural abilities of Wei Haichao and the rest were completely useless after Lin Xiao arrived, because Lin Xiao's black mist had covered a large area outside the base. The zombies were unable to break in, because the moment they got close to the black mist, they would immediately turn into water and disappear. Other people's mist was afraid of the wind, but the black mist in front of them was not. Whenever there was a gust of wind, Wei Haichao would see Lin Xiao stretch out his hands as if he was controlling the black fog. Then the black fog would all be pressed down, finally pressing down on the ground, turning into a strange black substance. Then, no matter how the wind blew, it would not budge. At this time, if the zombies ran over the black substance, their legs would immediately be melted. Without legs, the zombies didn't stop. They used their hands to crawl forward, and their speed wasn't much slower than their legs. The zombies didn't have their lower bodies. They crawled on the ground with their upper bodies, but after a few seconds, they turned into water. Wei Haichao had silently decided to stay away from this woman. Thinking about it, Hu Jiong actually dared to have thoughts of touching her. It was also his own fault. Whoosh! A gust of wind, accompanied by an eagle's cry, appeared, and a huge bird's shadow quickly flew over. Junyao is here again. Attention! Watch out! Seeing the giant bird appear, everyone immediately panicked. Wei Haichao's eyes narrowed. Staring at the direction of the giant bird, he slightly raised his hands. The giant bird slightly lowered its flying height, gliding over the ground at a height of 2 meters. When it was still 20 meters away from the city wall, it immediately rose vertically and shot into the sky. Whoosh! The huge wings brought up a huge gust of wind. This bird's wings were very big. The 2 wings had a wingspan of 10 meters. But its identity was not that of a bird, but a human. Only its head turned into the shape of a bird, and its legs turned into claws. This was a natural animal-type zombie that had turned into a birdman. This was the 7th time this birdman appeared, and every time he appeared, he would take away a human level 4 or 5 paranormal. Like a falcon in the sky, he would stare at his prey and fiercely swoop down, quickly, fiercely, and accurately using his claws to directly grab the person and then tear him apart in the air and throw him down. Looking at the birdman flying high up in the sky, he hovered above their heads. The hearts of Wei Haichao and the people in his base were raised to the sky, but they were waiting for him to rush down. After a few circles in the air, the birdman suddenly folded his wings and then shot down like a cannonball. Coming! Wei Haichao's eyes were cold, and he shouted. He reminded everyone to take cover. This time, the birdman really rushed down toward a level 5 paranormal. The paranormal who was targeted saw the giant bird rushing straight towards him, and a strong sense of danger climbed from his back to the back of his head. But he did not panic, and immediately rushed towards Wei Haichao. Seeing that the birdman was rushing down quickly, and when it was only 2 or 3 meters away from the level 5 paranormal, suddenly a few thick vines burst out from the side and swung towards the giant bird, ready to entangle it. But the giant bird just turned sideways, its neck tilted, and its rushing trajectory immediately bent to the side. It easily avoided the vines, and then quickly rose up and flew into the air. Lin Xiao silently watched this scene, and for the time being, she did not plan to help. She looked up at the birdman, and her face was expressionless. At this moment, the level 2 king at the east gate suddenly turned around and retreated, bringing the 2 level first kings far away from where they were. The direction in which he retreated was the direction where Mo Yin was previously. That's right, Mo Yin was preparing to quietly retreat. And when the zombies did not know, he must leave as soon as possible. Even if he could not use his ability, his senses towards the same kind of people did not decrease. Even if there were countless level first kings hiding near him these past few days, and they had concealed their aura, he was still able to sense them. Those zombie kings were indeed staring at him. His energy had disappeared, and his aura had also weakened. After carefully observing him for a few days, the other party suddenly disappeared. Mo Yin immediately knew that he was going to send a message, but he did not know which level 2 king was preparing to attack him. But Mo Yin did not care who it was. He had a strong sense of danger, and he had to leave as soon as possible. So when the zombie king that had been observing him left, Mo Yin immediately left with the female zombie. As Mo Yin left, the level 2 king was sneaking towards where he was previously, but he soon discovered that Mo Yin and the female zombie had disappeared. Roar Dash, seeing that Mo Yin had escaped, the level 2 king was somewhat angry. He immediately chased after Mo Yin's scent. Chapter 807. Sikong Chun, who had just rushed out, saw the level 2 king tier retreating. He felt it was strange and chased after it. Lu Jinan, Ho Guazhong, and the others continued to fight on the city wall. However, he soon discovered that the level 2 king tier had taken away all the level 6 and level 5 zombies. What was left were ordinary zombies and level 1 to level 4 zombies. On the other side, Wu Qingyue soon received the news that Sikong Chun had chased after the level 2 king tier. He looked at the situation in the other 2 places and immediately disappeared from the city wall. On the other side, Lin Xiao watched leisurely as the birdman flew up and swooped down to catch Wei Haichao. However, Wei Haichao kept blocking it with his vines, which made the birdman irritated. Roar Dash! It let out a strange roar and began to attack Wei Haichao. The attack was very violent, as if it would not stop until it killed this human. The birdman's attack was very powerful and fast. It flew here and there, creating a gust of wind that blew everyone around. They could not stand still and could not see clearly. On the other hand, their attacks were unable to hit this huge birdman. Even if they did, they would be blocked by his steel-like feathers, unable to cause any damage at all. Soon, Wei Haichao, who was being targeted, became flustered and powerless. "Miss Liu, please help our director." Li Welong, who was working beside Wei Haichao, suddenly ran in front of Lin Xiao and asked her for help. Lin Xiao slightly turned her head and looked at the birdman in the sky and said, "I can't do anything about the air attack. I'm not a wind elemental." She was just here to watch the show and not to be their main force. Then what do we do now? Li Yuelong heard her refusal and became even more anxious. Lin Xiao rolled her eyes and looked in the direction of Xikong Chun and Wu Changwei. She then looked back at the huge birdman in front of her and pondered. After a while, she said, "Go and tell your boss to hold on for a while. I think the birdman will give up attacking soon." Just as Lin Xiao finished speaking, the huge birdman, who was using its claws to crush countless vines, suddenly flew into the sky. It flew in a circle and then turned into a black shadow and flew away. Soon, it became a black dot in the distant sky. At this time, Lin Xiao suddenly flipped over and jumped down from the city wall. With a few flashes, he rushed outside and disappeared. Li Yuelong was stunned. For a moment, he did not understand why the giant eagle and the female leader had suddenly disappeared. However, when he saw the giant eagle leave, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. On the other side of the city wall, Lan Lu was also chasing after the rank second kings. These rank second kings had retreated almost at the same time. Xikong Chun and the others didn't know what was going on, as the zombie emperor hadn't appeared in the past 2 days. Therefore, he had been probing these second-tier monarchs and had not gone all out. Now that they saw these second-grade kings suddenly retreating for unknown reasons, they immediately chased after them. He wanted to see what was going on with the zombie emperor. However, Lin Xiao was the clearest. She could clearly sense that Mo Yan's weak aura was getting further and further away. Meanwhile, the other second-grade kings were rushing towards him. However, all of them were filled with hostility and killing intent. Seemed like they already knew about Mo Yan's situation and were preparing to retaliate. The zombie emperor could control the minds of zombies below rank 5, but he could not control these kings. He could only use brute force to suppress them. Now that he was no longer strong enough, the second-grade kings who had been suppressed by him began to fight back. After so many days, the survivors of the Black Dragon base had slowly cleared out the horde of zombies. Once they were done, they began to repair the walls. They also began to clean up the plantations, saving the plants that were still alive and clearing out the dead ones. Although most of the buildings in the base had been destroyed, they could still live underground while repairing the structures above ground. "Boss, Gao Haoyun has disappeared for the past 2 days. We haven't seen him. Do you think he'll?" One of Du Kuanxing's subordinates reported to him. Du Kuanxing smirked. "Will he run away again? Aside from Haicheng and Skyfire base, where else can he go? You can send some people to keep an eye on Skyfire and Haicheng. See if he shows up." "Understood," the subordinate replied. "What's the situation in China?" Du Kuanxing asked. "A director died in China, but the cause of his death is a mystery. The zombies have also started to attack. Before it was just a wave of ordinary zombies, but recently there's been a wave of rank 1 and rank 2 kings, as well as a large number of rank 4 and rank 5 zombies. The leaders of Haicheng and Qingshan base are helping out." "Oh, right. The female leader is helping out as well. Her discipline is the poison mist," the subordinate reported. "Well, as long as these damn zombies don't return to our side, they can do whatever they want to China." Du Kuanxing heaved a sigh of relief. His handsome face was covered with a thick layer of exhaustion. His eye sockets were dark green, a clear sign he'd expended a lot of energy these past few days. But when he thought of Gao Haoyun, a fierce glint flashed across his eyes. Since Gao Haoyun didn't care for the Black Dragon base, then he'd let him go. But he'd never come back. This base was his roots. He'd built it with his own hands. He'd long since lost the right to be its leader. However, Du Kuanxing didn't know that Gao Haoyun would never come back. On the other side, Mo Yin didn't run for long before he felt his subordinates catching up. Of course, he didn't think that these rank 1 and rank 2 kings were here to greet him. Looking at their murderous looks, it was obvious that they were here to kill him. And they might even want to fight for the zombie core in his brain. Although his zombie core couldn't use any energy, it was still a great supplement for other zombies. Therefore, these rank 2 kings that had touched the edge of rank 8 zombie emperor If anyone could get his zombie core, they might be able to break through and become a zombie emperor. Without the zombie core's energy, Mo Yan's running speed was much slower than the other zombies. Even the female zombie next to him was faster than him. Therefore, he wasn't able to run for more than 10 kilometers before he was stopped. Roar dash! Mo Yan didn't panic. He just roared at the rank second kings in front of him. The rank 2 king in front was an earth element king. The 2 rank first kings behind him spread out and surrounded Mo Yan along with the rank 2 king. Hearing Mo Yan's warning, they were a bit scared, but they didn't retreat. Chapter 808. The level 2 king stared at Mo Yan. Although there was a sense of alertness in his eyes, he did not back down. Instead, there was a sense of greed. He stared at Mo Yan and did not make a sound. Other level 5 zombie leaders slowly appeared around him, forming a circle around him and the female zombie. Mo Yan wanted to scare them, but although it was effective against the level 5 and level 6 leaders and kings, it was useless against the level 2 king. He became a little impatient. His current situation was something he had not expected. He only thought that he would eventually go mad, go berserk, lose consciousness, and become a mad beast without reason. But he did not expect that he would become like this. He had completely lost his ability, but he still retained his consciousness. Without his ability, he was just a normal zombie, and any of the level 5 zombies around him could kill him. He could not die yet. He had not killed that Gao Haoyun. There was still another one. If he hadn't chased them all the way to Huaxia, he wouldn't have discovered the people who had eaten his flesh in the past. Not only did he have to kill the level 8 Gao Haoyun, he also had to kill the other level 8 metahuman. But now that his ability was gone, he had become a normal zombie. He could easily be killed by high-level zombies, so he could not die. He still had to take revenge. Looking at the zombies around him, Mo Yan's expression was fierce, not showing any weakness. His aura was still so strong that other than the level 2 king, the other zombies did not dare to move. The rank 2 king zombie stared at Mo Yan for a while and suddenly squinted its pair of dark yellow eyes. Roar dash! He roared and waved his hand at Mo Yan. A crack appeared under Mo Yan's feet. Luckily, Mo Yan dodged quickly and did not fall. But with the roar of the level 2 king zombie, the surrounding zombies immediately rushed towards Mo Yan as if they had received an order. Roar dash! Mo Yan had just jumped to avoid the crack on the ground, but before he landed, he was hit by another fireball. Bang dash! Mo Yan could not dodge in time and was immediately hit in the back, causing him to fly to the other side and fall to the ground. However, after Mo Yan landed on the ground, he used the momentum to roll on the ground. Then, he nimbly leapt up from the ground and jumped to the other side. Puff, puff, puff. A few wind blades cut into the place where he rolled after falling, leaving a few knife marks on ground. Roar dash! A white shadow appeared in front of Mo Yan and roared at the rank 2 king zombie. The female zombie's voice was quite sharp as she stared at the rank 2 king and the surrounding zombies with vigilance. She bared her teeth and glared at him with a ferocious expression on her beautiful face. His entire body exuded a strong, killing intent. Roar! The level 2 king tier roared at the female zombie. What he meant was for her to get out of the way. However, the female zombie was determined to protect Mo Yan. She looked at the rank 2 king with an angry expression. Roar! Get out of my way! The rank 2 king seemed to be hesitating, but it was because he didn't want to hurt this female zombie. At the same time, she wanted the female zombie to move aside and not protect Mo Yan, who was behind her. Right at this moment, Mo Yan's expression suddenly froze. The rank 2 king tier also looked at the direction of the Huaxia base. Then the rank 2 king tier roared at the female zombie. Roar dash! His voice was filled with warning and expulsion, because they felt that there was a new danger in the direction of the Huaxia base. Not far away, a few rank 2 king tiers were approaching at an extremely fast speed, and there were also powerful human beings following them. The first one to appear was a giant bird that flew in the sky with a gust of wind. Roar dash! What is this? The giant bird roared in the sky, and its voice was filled with uncertainty. The rank 2 king tier that was confronting the female zombie on the ground raised his head and roared towards the sky. Roar dash, you don't need to worry about me. Get out of my way. At this moment, Mo Yin pulled the female zombie and rushed towards a rank 5 king tier zombie. Roar dash. The two of them roared at the zombie at the same time and then attacked it with lightning speed. Of course, Mo Yin didn't use his claws like a wild beast. He just used his momentum to spin his body and lift his leg to kick the zombie. Before the zombie could react, Mo Yin kicked him away. Even though he didn't have his special ability, his fighting skills were still there. Facing a king-tier zombie that couldn't react in time, he could still hold on for a while. The giant bird that was flying in the sky saw Mo Yin's action, and its eyes flashed with doubt. Then it showed a hesitant expression. Mo Yin and the female zombie immediately rushed out after kicking the rank 5 king tier zombie away. The rank 2 king tier on the ground didn't care about the giant bird in the sky anymore, and he turned his head and released his special ability in front of Mo Yin. A few sharp thorns suddenly appeared from the ground, and it pierced towards Mo Yin and the female zombie. However, Mo Yin and the female zombie reacted quickly and jumped away, avoiding the thorns, and continued to run. At this moment, the rank 2 king tier also rushed over and chased after Mo Yin. The giant bird in the sky had already confirmed the situation. It furiously retracted its wings and dived down towards Mo Yin. Roar dash, seeing the giant bird swooping down and the rank 2 king tier zombie on the ground. The female zombie screamed in panic. She didn't know if she was going to block the rank 2 king tier zombie or the giant bird in the sky. At this moment, Sikong Chun came to a stop not too far away. He looked at the situation in front of him blankly. He saw two rank 2 king tier zombies leading other rank 5 and rank 6 zombies to attack the zombie emperor. At this time, the zombie emperor didn't seem to be in a good state either. It only cared about dodging left and right, and although it dodged the attacks around it, it didn't use its lightning ability. What was going on? Why did they suddenly start fighting? Moreover, the two rank 2 king tier zombies had rushed back from the battlefield, and it didn't seem like they were summoned back. Sikong Chin stood on the side and watched for a while. He noticed that the zombies were attacking the zombie emperor. However, other than the two rank 2 king tier zombies, the other zombies didn't dare to get close. The two rank 2 king tier zombies were either fighting to attack the zombie emperor or fighting each other. Then, the zombie emperor would find an opportunity to escape with the female zombie in the white dress again. The more Sikong Chen watched, the more interested he was. However, before he could understand what was going on, another rank 2 king tier zombie rushed over. Roared dash soon. The third rank 2 king tier zombie also joined the battle. Their target was the zombie emperor. In the end, Sikong Chen finally understood. They wanted to kill the zombie emperor first, and then take the zombie core. Chapter 809. What's going on? A figure appeared next to Sikong Chun and asked. Sikong Chun stood still and looked at the three rank second kings fighting over the zombie emperor and shook his head. I don't know, but you can see for yourself. The three rank second kings were currently fighting over the zombie emperor. Moreover, the zombie emperor had been acting very weak up until now. It hasn't used its lightning ability either. Wu Qingyue's eyes flashed as he guessed. Something happened to the zombie emperor, so it's being attacked by its subordinates? Sikong Chen looked back and said, the other two have also returned. It seems like there are only 5 ranked second kings around the zombie emperor. Wu Qingyue also looked back and nodded. It seems like there are only 5, right? Why haven't we found Gao Haoyun yet? Did he sneak away? Although he knew the answer, Wu Qingyue couldn't help but want to cover for the female zombie. As soon as Gao Haoyun was mentioned, Sikong Chen's expressionless face immediately became gloomy. It had been a few days, and there was no news of Gao Haoyun at all. There was no sign of him leaving either. It was as if he had suddenly disappeared from his base in China. Sikong Chen said in a low voice with a hint of coldness, if he left, why didn't these zombies leave? Didn't they say that he was the zombie emperor's target? Wu Qingwei shrugged and said, I'm just guessing. Could it be that he hit himself? Why? Si Kongqun frowned and said, who knows? At this time, Mo Yin was rolling around on the ground, trying to dodge the attacks of the three rank second kings. If it wasn't for the female zombie blocking in front of him, he would have been killed by them. The female zombie's ability was very effective in healing zombies, and these rank second kings were not stupid. They knew how useful the female zombie's ability was to them. That was why they couldn't bear to kill her, so they didn't dare to kill her. At this point, Mo Yan's body had already been cut a few times by the wind zombie. The wounds were huge, and thick black blood covered his entire body, mixing with the dirt and dirt to form a dark brown stain. The more blood a zombie loses, the less energy it has in its body. This made Mo Yin feel that his physical strength was getting weaker. Roar, dash, get out of the way. We only want his corpse core. The giant bird flew more than 10 meters above their heads and roared at the female zombie with dissatisfaction. The female zombie was like an angry lioness. She raised her head and roared at the sky to show her resistance. Her resistance attracted the dissatisfaction of the other two second-level kings, and they roared at her. Roar! Their voices were filled with warning and the last trace of patience, as if they would be impolite if she resisted any further. Although he wouldn't kill her, he wouldn't continue to tolerate her. Roar, dash! The female zombie was unmoved, but she became more alert. Roar, dash! The giant bird in the air apparently lost its patience. After a shrill roar, it suddenly closed its wings and turned into a shadow, rushing towards the female zombie. His speed was extremely fast. The height was not high to begin with, so he rushed down in the blink of an eye. When the female zombie reacted, she knew that she couldn't hide even if she wanted to, because her speed wasn't that fast, not to mention that the enemy was attacking from the air, and a reaction from above would be more timely than her. No matter which direction she went, the enemy would be able to change the angle of attack in time. Seeing that the giant bird was really going to attack the female zombie, the other two second-level kings were shocked and rushed out to help her block the attack. Bang, dash! The three of them separated immediately. Roar, dash! The two second-level kings on the ground gave a warning roar to the giant bird in the air. However, when they rushed out to help her block the attack, the female zombie saw the opportunity and immediately rushed out with Mo Yin. But soon, her eyes flashed, and a few figures immediately blocked in front of the two of them. Roar, dash! The few first-level kings blocked in front of the three second-level kings. Seeing that the three second-level kings were fighting, they immediately rushed towards Mo Yin. Right now, they didn't even need to use their abilities to deal with Mo Yin, because it was more accurate to use their claws. As long as they could claw Mo Yin's head off, they could just grab the corpse core and run away. The situation was not good at all. She tried to break out of the encirclement several times, but she couldn't. Roar, dash! She roared with a ferocious expression. Even though she was the lowest level here, she wasn't afraid of these kings that were 1 or 2 levels higher than her. Mo Yin didn't give up either. He turned his head and looked at the direction of Si Kongqun and the other two. His eyes flashed, as if he was waiting for something. At this time, the last two second-level kings also rushed over from 2 different directions, but they didn't immediately join the battle. They just observed for a while. It's so lively here. What's going on? Lan Lu's voice sounded behind Si Kongqun and the other two. Wu Qingwei smiled and looked back at him. Take a guess. Lan Lu looked at the battle for a few seconds, and then he immediately understood. He analyzed and said, these second-level kings are rebelling right now, right? But why aren't they willing to hurt the female zombie leader in white? Obviously, this female zombie leader has something special, and it's beneficial to zombies. This is the zombie emperor, not bad-looking handsome. The lines on his face also have personality. But is he awake now? Why isn't he using his ability? I don't know. I haven't used my ability since I came here. If it wasn't for the female zombie protecting him, he wouldn't be in this good condition. Si Kongqun shook his head. He hasn't used his ability since? And these second-level kings aren't afraid of him. Could it be that he can't use his ability? So these second-rank kings sensed something and wanted to kill him? Lan Lu rubbed his chin with his thumb and index finger and said after thinking for a while, "No wonder they are fighting over the zombie emperor. It seems like they all want the zombie emperor's corpse core. With this corpse core, these second-level kings would probably be able to break through to rank 8. Wu Qingyue followed a train of thought and immediately stopped smiling. How can we do that? As he spoke, his body flashed, and he immediately rushed out. Lan Lu and the other two were not slow either. As soon as Wu Qingyue flashed out, the two of them also flashed out. Kill this zombie emperor first. Don't let them get it, Sikong Chun said as he rushed out and casually threw out a few huge fireballs, which smashed towards the second-grade beast kings that were fighting together. However, he still rushed towards the zombie emperor. Rumble dash! Wu Qingyue waved his hand, and several lightning bolts struck down from the sky towards the surrounding zombies. At this moment, a transparent figure flashed, and before Sikong Chun arrived, Mo Yin, who was crouching on the ground, was put into the space. Chapter 8:10. After Mo Yin disappeared, before the zombies and Sikong Chun could react, the female zombie in the white dress also disappeared. By the time Wu Qingyue's thunderous roars died down, Sikong Chun had already lost his target. He stopped abruptly and stared blankly at where Mo Yin had been a moment ago. Huh, where's the zombie emperor? Wu Qingyue, who was about to summon another wave of thunder, suddenly looked at Sikong Chun strangely. Roar! Not only did Sikong Chun and Wu Qingyue feel strange, but all the zombies also stopped moving. They stared at the zombie emperor's position for a few seconds, then rushed over while ignoring Wu Qingyue and Lan Lu's attacks. Could it be space type? That zombie emperor also has a space type ability, so that's what it was waiting for. I was wondering why it didn't resist before. Lan Lu's eyes flashed and suddenly realized something. When Lan Lu saw the zombie emperor and the female zombie suddenly disappear, he immediately thought of the space-type ability. Only a space-type ability could cause such an effect. Therefore, he thought that it might be another hidden skill of the zombie emperor, which was another ability it had hidden. It was no wonder that although the zombie emperor seemed to be in a very dangerous situation, it did not panic at all. Instead, it just calmly dodged the attacks. It must have some kind of trick up its sleeve. Therefore, it must have this trick up its sleeve. Apart from Wu Qingyue, no one else knew that the female zombie could not only have a space-type ability, but also become invisible. Therefore, after hearing Lan Lu's words, Wu Qingyue looked at Lan Lu strangely, but his expression did not change, and he said, "It seems like that is the case. Although it only cares about dodging, it seems to be very calm. It's not anxious at all." Mo Yan's disappearance had thrown all the zombies into chaos. Don't let these level second kings run away. Sikong Chun quickly reacted. Even if the zombie emperor ran away, there was still a lot of prey in front of them. He immediately changed his target and rushed towards the nearest level 2 king. That's right. Wu Qingyue nodded, then turned around and sent a few thunder strikes at another level 2 king. Roar! When the zombies saw that the zombie emperor had disappeared with the female zombie, they became furious. Just as they were about to explode, they saw Sikong Chun and the other humans attacking them. As such, their anger at the zombie emperor's escape was immediately transferred to the humans. Thus, the battle continued. Mo Yin, who was thrown into the spatial forest by Lin Xiao, heaved a sigh of relief. What do you mean by that expression? You look relieved. Did you already guess that I would show up? Lin Xiao looked at Mo Yin with a surprised look on his face. Roar dash! Seeing Lin Xiao, the female zombie next to Mo Yin immediately flashed in front of Mo Yin and stared at her vigilantly. Mo Yin pressed on her shoulder from behind, trying to calm her down. He walked out from behind the female zombie and calmly looked at Lin Xiao. The black lines on his face and the pair of black eyes made it impossible to see his face clearly. Mo Yin stared at Lin Xiao silently. He was actually just making a bet before. He was betting on whether the female zombie leader would save him or not. He knew that she was nearby because he could sense her faint aura that others couldn't. He just couldn't guess whether the female zombie leader would save him or not, but he was sure that she wouldn't take the opportunity to kill him. Mo Yin knew that in this situation, if the female zombie leader was willing to save him, then she must have a request. She wouldn't save him for no reason or out of kindness. Before Lin Xiao could speak, there was a whistling sound from the side. Then, a figure rushed in between Lin Xiao and Mo Yin. Lin Xiao, who was about to speak, Mo Yin and the female zombie only reacted after the figure flashed past. The two of them tensed up and immediately became fully alert. They looked at Lin Xiao's expression and saw that her smiling face seemed to be a little stiff. Lin Xiao's face froze for half a second before returning to normal. When he was about to speak again, there was a strange barking sound from the side. Arf, 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 arf. The huge black dog brought a gust of wind and rushed in between Lin Xiao and Mo Yin without any hesitation. Lin Xiao, who was about to speak, Mo Yin, who felt the atmosphere was inexplicably awkward, the female zombie with a blank face. Lin Xiao took a deep breath and pressed the anger symbol back on her forehead. This time, she didn't speak to Mo Yin, but turned her head to look in the direction of the two zombies. As expected, as soon as he turned his head, he saw a huge black snake rushing over aggressively. It also ignored Lin Xiao, Mo Yin, and the other two zombies that were standing still. Lin Xiao, Mo Yin, and the female zombie silently took 2 steps back, letting the angry black snake go past them. Only then did they open their mouths to speak. "Looks like you were betting on whether I would come to save you or not, right?" Lin Xiao looked at the snake that was still slithering in front of her and said to Mo Yin. Mo Yin looked at her, his eyes flashing, then slowly nodded. Lin Xiao's mouth curled up and said, "Okay, since you already thought of this, then you must have guessed what I'm going to say next. Will you agree?" Mo Yin didn't nod this time. He just stared at Lin Xiao for a few seconds before saying, "Roar dash conditions." Lin Xiao nodded and continued to look at him with a smile. "Okay, since you agreed. The conditions are very simple. You will follow me and do things according to my rules." Mo Yin squinted his eyes, and his whole body suddenly became a little restless. Roar dash. Mo Yin didn't say anything, but the female zombie behind him roared at Lin Xiao with dissatisfaction. Why did she let her king do things for her? She was only a level 2 king, which was lower than an emperor. Lin Xiao's smile didn't change. She turned to look at the female zombie and said, "Because I saved his life this time. Otherwise, how long does he think his broken zombie core can last?" After she said that, the female zombie immediately quieted down. Mo Yin was dazed and looked at Lin Xiao blankly. Lin Xiao looked back at his eyes and said, "Weren't you wondering why your ability couldn't be used? Your zombie core can't store energy because the energy you forced into it was beyond the limit of your zombie core, and it has already cracked. You still don't know?" As soon as Mo Yin heard this, his eyes slightly widened. He looked at Lin Xiao in surprise. After a few seconds, he realized what Lin Xiao meant. Then, his expression immediately turned gloomy. In addition to the black lines that were already all over his face, he looked even gloomier. "Don't worry, your corpse core is only cracked. It wasn't broken yet. With enough time, it will heal. Besides, isn't she still by your side? If it really doesn't work, I'll think of another way to treat you." After Lin Xiao finished speaking, he turned around and walked out of the forest. Whoa. A few figures ran past the 3 of them like a gust of wind. Chapter 8:11. Looking at Lin Xiao's back, the female zombie's expression was still angry. However, she relaxed her guard because she knew that her and Mo Yan's lives were no longer in danger. She turned around to look at Mo Yan. Although Mo Yan didn't nod, she knew that her king had already agreed to her condition. Since her king had already accepted it, she could only follow suit. However, she would only listen to the words of the Empress, not this strange fellow of hers. "Oh, right, I have a message for you. Gao Haoyun died in my hands. You should have nothing to worry about, right?" Lin Xiao, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Mo Yin. And Mo Yin, who had just taken 2 steps, froze. When he heard Gao Haoyun's name, his entire body froze. However, when he heard that Gao Haoyun had died in Lin Xiao's hands, he was stunned. He raised his head and looked at Lin Xiao, not knowing why she killed Gao Haoyun. Of course, he didn't think that she killed him to help him. Lin Xiao turned around and continued walking. "Of course not to help you. He was the one who messed with me. How can I let him go? It's true that I'm beautiful, but not everyone can dream of being like me." Looking at the narcissistic Lin Xiao, Mo Yin was speechless. Why did this feel so familiar? Immediately, he understood what the other party meant. It was obvious that Gao Haoyun had taken a fancy to her beauty and attacked her. But did she really kill Gao Haoyun? Mo Yin was a bit doubtful. Lin Xiao continued walking. "You've gotten your revenge, and the person who deserved to die is dead. From now on, just stay here and keep your zombie core. Don't go out and cause trouble." Hearing this, Mo Yin frowned. He suddenly thought of something, and his expression turned cold. Finally, he roared, "Roar, you know who I am?" From Lin Xiao's words, she said that he wanted to get revenge. It was obvious that she knew why he wanted to deal with the Black Dragon base and China base. Did that mean that she knew who he was when he was alive? Mo Yin, a lot of people know your name. Lin Xiao replied calmly. Mo Yin's name represented a lot of things. She knew. Mo Yin's face darkened. "Actually, it's not a bad thing for you to follow me. At least you can preserve your life for now, and then you can slowly nurture your corpse core. You can help me after you recover your strength. After all, you have nothing to do after you get your revenge," Lin Xiao said. Mo Yin was silent. He didn't say that even if Gao Haoyun was dead, there was still one more person in Huaxiao that he wanted to kill. However, he really didn't have that strength now, so he could only wait for the future. He used to be a gangster, so he knew that nothing was more reassuring than profit, because in the face of profit, there were no absolute enemies or friends. Since he needed to cooperate with this female zombie leader, he would follow her conditions. What the female zombie leader said was right. He needed to rest and recover his ability. Mo Yin had acknowledged Lin Xiao's ability. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed. At the very least, he was sure that she had the ability to protect him. The reason why Lin Xiao saved him was because the zombie emperor could become a part of his base after it recovered its strength, which would increase their chances of defending the base in the future. The second reason was because Lin Xiao liked the female zombie, but this female zombie seemed to have an inexplicable obsession with Mo Yin. So she killed 2 birds with 1 stone. She could save Mo Yin, and at the same time, she could easily subdue this female zombie. This female zombie was a healing type, which was rare. As they walked, they reached the edge of the forest, and the light in front of them became brighter and brighter. Whoosh dash, a whoosh dash, the 3 monsters in front of them rushed over again, but the 2 in front were running happily, while the one behind was chasing angrily. Obviously, A Wong and the mushroom spirit went to make Dahe angry, so they were chased. Following Lin Xiao out of the forest, the environment in front of them changed. There was a lake that was as calm as a mirror, a tall grassland, and 3 buildings on the side. In front of the buildings, there was a large area of agricultural products. On the other side of the lake was a boundless grassland, and there were 2 kinds of animals on the grassland. Mo Yin just took a quick glance and didn't care about them. What he cared about was that the lake gave him a very dangerous and oppressive aura, which made him subconsciously resist getting close to it. A whoosh dash at this time, 2 of them ran past Lin Xiao's eyes, and behind them was a big black snake. Obviously, it was annoyed by these 2, and it didn't want to stop until it caught up and bit them. At this time, Mo Yin finally saw the appearance of the other 2, except for the snake. One was a bald dog, and the other was... What the hell? Was his eyes playing tricks on him? Was that a mushroom that could run? In fact, A Wong wasn't bald anymore. Its hair had grown a short layer, but because it was very short, it still looked bald. When Lin Xiao brought Mo Yin out, the zombies in the building quieted down, especially the 4 level 1 kings, Pit Pit, Fox, Yi Qing Xian, and Nanjing. They weren't that happy to see Mo Yin, they were just curious. After all, they didn't have any memory of when they followed Mo Yin, and they only followed him because they were suppressed by him. After they followed Lin Xiao changed their blood, and they recovered some of their memories. Although they weren't that loyal to Lin Xiao, compared to Mo Yin, they were more willing to follow Lin Xiao. Mo Yin also sensed their aura, but because he felt something strange from afar, he couldn't confirm it. When he arrived in front of the building, he saw the appearance of the level 1 kings, and he was able to confirm it. Aren't you curious about the difference in their auras? Because they have recovered some of their memories from when they were alive, some things they remembered, and some things they couldn't. Also, they all remembered their names. Lin Xiao said to Mo Yin. Xie Dong and Lu Qianni stood on the 2 sides of the door of the first building, looking at Lin Xiao bringing Mo Yin and Nanjing over. Because Mo Yin's zombie emperor aura was too strong, the curious and scared pesticide hid behind the wall of the building and stuck his head out to sea. Below him was a head with a pair of curious eyes. Of course, it was Xiao Xiao, who was as curious and timid as pesticide. Jing Yin, Pit Pit, and the other zombies were watching Lin Xiao and Mo Yin from the balconies of the other 2 buildings. Pit Pit and the others saw the former leader and the current leader walking over peacefully, and their expressions were a bit complicated. I didn't expect the 2 of them to walk together so peacefully. Pit Pit sat on the railing of the balcony, leaning against the wall with one of his legs crossed, and said with a hoarse voice, "No discord, no concord." Fox was lying on the balcony next to Pit Pit's, holding his chubby cheeks with his hands, and said, Chapter 8:12. After entering the living room, Lin Xiao invited Mo Yin to sit on the sofa. The female zombie dutifully stood behind Mo Yin, curiously looking around the room while staring at Lin Xiao. Lu Qianni went to get a few cups of water and placed them on the coffee table in front of the 3. But the clear water attracted Mo Yin and the female zombie's attention. Because of the fragrance and the faint energy coming from the water, the 2 instinctively wanted to drink it. Lin Xiao squinted his eyes and looked at the battlefield outside the space, then suddenly opened his eyes and said, "I'm going out for a bit. You guys sit first." Then he immediately stood up and disappeared in front of them. Mo Yin squinted his eyes and suddenly realized that this was Lin Xiao's space. He turned his head and looked outside the door with an unclear expression. He didn't expect her space to be so big, and it was very beautiful. Although Mo Yin couldn't see color, there was a lake, trees, and grass. Even if it was an ink painting, it would still be beautiful. Not to mention that Mo Yin had automatically colored it in his mind. At this time, the 5 rank second kings led a group of rank 5 and 6 zombies to attack Sikong Shun and the other 2. But Sikong Shun and the other 2 were rank 8 metahumans. Other than the 5 rank second kings, the attacks of the other zombies didn't have any effect. Instead, many of them were killed by the 3. At this time, Lan Lu raised his head and stared at the giant bird in the sky. He raised his hand and grabbed at the direction of the giant bird. Then he suddenly clenched his hand, as if he had grabbed something in his hand. Roar dash! The giant bird in the sky suddenly paused and fell from the sky. But when it was halfway down, it struggled fiercely, spread its wings, flipped over, and flew back up. Lan Lu frowned and sighed. Sure enough, the distance was too far. His spirit binding was not very effective. He wanted to blow up the opponent's brain, but because the opponent's position was too high and Tianxing's speed was too fast, Lan Lu couldn't catch the target. Boom dash! Just as the giant bird struggled to fly up, a lightning bolt suddenly fell from the sky and hit the giant bird. Roar dash! The giant bird roared and fell from the sky again. But halfway down, the giant bird struggled to fly up again. Just as Wu Qingyue was about to blast the second lightning bolt, the ground under his feet suddenly cracked. Wu Qingyue had no choice but to withdraw his attack and leave the place. It was an attack from another rank 2 Earth Element King. If each of them was fighting against a second-grade king, then their chances of winning would be very high. However, right now, the three of them were fighting against 5 second-grade kings at the same time, and it was a draw for the time being. Lure them away. If the 5 of them join forces, it will not be beneficial to us, Lan Lu suddenly said. Indeed, these second-grade kings were not stupid. They knew how powerful Sikong Chun and the other two were. Therefore, they temporarily formed a joint attack. After all, they were originally following Mo Yin, and Mo Yin also taught them how to fight together. Sikong Chun waved his hand and threw a condensed fireball at a king-class zombie leader that couldn't dodge in time. With a pung dash sound, the zombie leader was immediately blown away. Sikong Chin's figure flashed and appeared behind the zombie chief. He extended his hand, and a fireball covered the zombie chief's head. Within a few seconds, the zombie chief's head was burnt to ashes. The zombie core inside was grabbed by Sikong Chun, and he casually put it into his pocket. On the other side, Lan Lu also reached out his hand to grab the incoming zombie chief. Then, before the zombie chief could attack, he squeezed his 5 fingers. Puff dash, the zombie chief's head was also crushed. The zombie core popped out, and Lan Lu's figure flashed and caught it. Those that dared to rush in front of the 3 were all zombie chief, and there were at least 30 of them. This was because they were the same as the 5-rank first kings, and they were being controlled by the 5-rank second kings. Due to the pressure of their rank, they had no choice but to rush forward. Behind these rank 5 leaders were the rank 5 and rank first kings. Mo Yin had brought 7 rank first kings with him, but one of them had been accidentally killed by Wu Qingyue when he went berserk. Another one had been killed by Wu Qingyue not long ago. Now, there were only 5 left, and they were still following behind the zombie chief and attacking Sikong Chun and the other 2. The 5-rank second kings, on the other hand, had retreated far away, maintaining a safe distance from Sikong Chun and the other 2. Right at this moment, a transparent figure suddenly flashed towards the outermost rank 2 king. This was the wind-type zombie king among the 5-rank second kings. At this moment, he couldn't feel the transparent figure flashing towards him at all. He was standing on the roof of a 7-story building, looking down at the battle below. From time to time, he would raise his hand and shoot out a few wind blades to sneak attack the 3 humans. Just as he was about to raise his hand and shoot out another gust of wind, a hand suddenly grabbed his hand and pulled him back. The rank 2 king only felt that his hand that was about to attack was suddenly grabbed, and before he could react, he was pulled forward. Then, his vision became blurry. When he came back to his senses, he found that he had run from the rooftop to an unfamiliar forest. Because there was still a chaotic battle outside, no one noticed that one of the 5-rank second kings was missing. Lin Xiao threw this rank 2 king into the space and didn't care about it anymore. He flashed out of the space and continued to move towards his next target. Among the remaining 4 rank second kings, besides the one flying in the sky, there was an earth type, a fire type, and a metal type. Lin Xiao moved towards the metal type level 2 king because he was currently the closest to her. Boom! Right at this moment, the rank 2 king that had just dodged Wu Qingyue's lightning attack suddenly realized that one of its companions was missing. It suddenly let out a loud roar. Roar! The other zombies all paused and looked around at the same time. They immediately realized that one rank 2 king was missing. The other zombies still didn't understand what was going on. Could it be that the rank 2 king quietly ran away? Noticing the strange behavior of the zombies, Sikong Chun and the other 2 were also stunned. Suddenly, Lan Lu said, "One rank 2 king is missing. Keep an eye on them. They are preparing to escape." After saying that, Wu Qingyue immediately shot a few lightning bolts at the giant bird in the sky. Roar! The giant bird dodged the lightning bolts a few times and instantly flew up. However, it didn't expect that when it flew up, a few more lightning bolts would come down from above. These lightning bolts were different from the previous ones. They were very fast, and they suddenly appeared next to the giant bird. Zila. These lightning bolts suddenly split into two, then into four, and instantly formed a huge lightning net. Then it covered the giant bird. Boom! The giant bird didn't have time to dodge and was covered. Chapter 813. Just when Wu Qingyue's Thundernet caught the Level 2 Zoan King, the Level 2 Metal-type zombie on the ground didn't even have time to react before it was pulled away and disappeared from spot. This scene was immediately seen by Sikong Chun. He squinted his eyes and said in a low voice, "They did not run by themselves. Someone is here." What he meant by someone was that someone was hiding in the shadows and had yet to show themselves. When he saw the Level 2 King disappear, he knew that it was something else. It might be the Zombie Emperor. Wu Qingyue's eyes flashed as he smiled and said, "It seems that if we don't act quickly, the prey will be taken away." Oomph. Sikong Chen's eyes turned cold as he rushed towards the Level 2 King. "This is just right, one for each of us." Lan Lu also smiled as he rushed towards the other Level 2 King. Seeing that the situation was not right, the Level 1 Kings felt a strong sense of crisis when they saw that 2 Level 2 Kings had disappeared. At this time, they didn't care about the orders of the Level 2 Kings. They took advantage of the fact that Sikong Chun and the other two were fighting the other Level 2 Kings to turn around and run away. At this time, Lin Xiao suddenly threw 2 Level 2 Kings into the space. She immediately hid in the dark and secretly controlled the pressure of the space towards one of the 2 Level 2 Kings, leaving the other Level 2 King wandering around in the forest. As long as Lin Xiao was not willing, he would not be able to leave the forest. Lin Xiao was ready to kill the 2 Level 2 Kings. Because of Mo Yin, she did not want to keep them as her power. If she wanted Mo Yin to sincerely follow her, then she definitely couldn't accept the zombies that had just betrayed him. That would only make Mo Yin feel bad about her. Since she could not take them as subordinates, she could only take in the zombie cores. Although Lin Xiao also wanted to take in all the zombies outside, she was too weak to deal with all of them at the same time. Plus, there were Sikong Chun and the others outside. If she took in all the zombies, it would attract the attention of Sikong Chun and Lan Lu. Then there would be a lot of trouble, especially since Wu Changyue was still outside. He knew all about her background. The one that was being squeezed by Lin Xiao was a Level 2 Metal King. He had just been fighting with a human somewhere else, so why was he suddenly pulled here? Where is this? Who pulled him in? The Metal Element Level 2 King was on full alert. No matter who it was, he could sense the hostility of the other party. In the end, he soon felt the aura in his surroundings stagnate. The Metal Element 2nd Rank King felt as if his body had been wrapped by something invisible, making him unable to move. The strong sense of danger caused the metal-type zombie's entire body to turn into a metallic color. It used it to protect itself, and at the same time, it wanted to get rid of this squeezed state. As soon as his body turned into metal, it became somewhat useful. The 2nd Rank King immediately felt his body loosen up, and the binding sensation disappeared. After all, he was a Rank 2 King that was about to become a zombie emperor. His strength was still very strong. Lin Xiao frowned, but his expression did not turn gloomy. Instead, his gaze sharpened. She waved her hand, and a dark flame rushed out, quickly leaping towards the direction of the metal-type zombie. After the metal-type zombie's entire body turned into a metallic color, he looked left and right, then suddenly raised his head and leaped up from a tree beside him. The result was the same as what happened to Gao Haoyan before. All he could see was a white fog, and he could not go any higher. The Metal Element's 2nd Rank King tried a few times, but he still could not get up. Moreover, there was only a white fog above him, and he could not see anything. He immediately leaped down from the tree. However, before he landed on the ground, he was greeted by a strange black flame that was as thick as an adult's thigh. The fatal sense of danger that came from the flame immediately made his hair stand on end. He reacted quickly and rolled in midair, then kicked the tree beside him and bounced out. However, the flames seemed to have locked onto him, and the moment he bounced out, it also bounced out. Then, it quickly wrapped around the leg of the metal element's second-rank king. Roar Dash, the level 2 king, did not feel pain, nor could he feel pain. However, the feeling of being wrapped around by the black flame made his entire body tremble. It was like a human being wrapped around by a cold, poisonous snake. When the black flame wrapped around his leg, it immediately started to burn, and it began to devour his leg. At this time, the level 2 king fell to the ground in a somewhat awkward manner, and his landing posture was chaotic and unsteady. The fabric of his pants had disappeared in an instant, revealing his metallic calf and foot. The black flame could not cause any damage to the calf of the level 2 zombie king, and it only stuck tightly to it and continued to burn. Roar Dash, the level 2 king jumped left and right on one leg, shaking his leg to get rid of the black flame on his leg, but he did not dare to slap it with his hand. He was surrounded by the forest, and there was no metal material for him to control, so he could only use his ability to turn his skin into metal. However, his body was still like that of a living dead person. Although the black flame could not cause any damage to the level 2 king, it did not retreat. Instead, it quickly spread to the level 2 king's thigh. Although the black flame could not burn this layer of metal skin for the time being, it was still quickly devouring the energy of the metal skin. Therefore, the metal element's second-rank king's ability was focused on his leg, preventing it from being completely devoured by the black flame. If his energy was completely devoured, then the black flame would completely devour his leg, and then him. This was what made the metal element's second-rank king feel a strong sense of danger. At this time, Lin Xiao was standing on a tree not far above the metal element's second-rank king's head. While controlling the dark flame to grab the metal element's second-rank king's leg, he was also controlling the pressure of the space to continue to squeeze the metal element's second-rank king. Soon, the metal element's second-rank king felt his whole body being bound again. However, he did not care about this at this time. He just wanted to get rid of the black flame on his body. The level 2 king panicked and rolled on the ground, trying to extinguish the flames. However, no matter how he rolled, the flames did not show any signs of diminishing. At this time, Lin Xiao's figure flashed, and 5 sharp black claws popped out, waving at the level 2 king who was rolling on the ground. Clang dash, the claws slashed the metal skin of the level 2 king, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. However, he was not injured at all. Lin Xiao's figure flashed and landed on the ground, and she frowned. Sure enough, without breaking the metal element armor, she could not kill him. Since that was the case, she could only use the dark flame to attack. Lin Xiao stretched out her hand, and the flames on the level 2 king's body immediately became darker. The energy devoured also became greater. Chapter 814. Although the metal-type level 2 Beast King was hard to deal with, Lin Xiao had the ability to suppress the level 2 Beast King. Lin Xiao used fire to devour the energy of the level 2 Beast King. When the level 2 Beast King returned to its normal zombie form, Lin Xiao used his claw to cut off its head. After digging out the corpse core, Lin Xiao directly burned the corpse. Then, he continued to deal with the next level 2 Beast King. The second Beast King was a wind-type Beast King. Without any defensive skills, Lin Xiao dealt with it like how he dealt with Lu Zhuofeng. It didn't take long for him to kill the level 2 Beast King. After harvesting 2 level 7 zombie cores, Lin Xiao's figure flashed out of the space. While invisible, he sensed the movements around him. It turned out that Xikong Shun and the other 2 Beast Kings had each chased a level 2 Beast King in 3 different directions. The other level 5 and level 6 zombies took the opportunity to slip away. Lin Xiao silently returned to the Huaxia base's wall. Seeing that without the level 2 Beast King, the momentum of the zombies had slowed down a lot. On the other side of the Universal Base, Lu Tong looked at the familiar surroundings after waking up. He turned his head and looked around. That's right. He was lying in the medical ward of the base again, and it was a multi-patient ward. There were 4 beds in this ward, and other than the one that was empty, there were 3 people lying in it, including him. The ward was very quiet, and there was no one else around. The other 2 patients were also sleeping, and there was no one around to take care of them. Lu Tong secretly rejoiced. Yuan Tianxing must have saved him and sent him to the hospital. It was just that he was too busy and did not have the time to visit him. However, Lu Tong felt that Yuan Tianxing would definitely come again. Oh, you're awake. How do you feel? Dizzy? Do you feel like vomiting? At this time, an ordinary man wearing a nurse's uniform walked in. Seeing that Lu Tong was awake, he smiled and asked, "Among the human survivors in the base, there are more men than women." The number of women was really pitiful. This was because when Hades' base was breached, a large number of women were sent to the Earth Dragon base. The captives in Hades' base were all men, and there were also some soldiers who were coerced. Therefore, even if the last 2 batches of survivors came to Hades' base, they were all men, and there were no women. Therefore, apart from the members of the Lin family, Long Qingying, Duan Wan, and Ding Datong's sister, there were no other women in the base. Therefore, the caregivers in the hospital were all men. Lu Tong shook his head at the nurse and chuckled. "I'm fine. I feel fine. It's just that my head hurts a little. It's good that you're fine. Pain is normal. After all, there's a hole in it. You'll be fine after resting for a while." The nurse comforted him with a smile. Lu Tong nodded. Although he had guessed that it was Yuan Tianxing who sent him here, he pretended to be anxious and asked, "Oh, right. May I ask who sent me here?" I want to thank him." The nurse thought for a moment and said, "Oh, a few migrant workers sent you here. They said you were knocked out by someone and no one cared about you, so they sent you here." Lu Tong had been waiting for the nurse to say that the deputy leader had sent him here, but he didn't expect to hear this. His expression froze, and after 2 or 3 seconds, it turned into a look of disbelief. "What? Migrant workers? Wasn't it Deputy Leader Yuan?" He was shocked and blurted out the words that came out of his mouth without thinking. The nurse looked at him strangely and said with a strange expression, What Deputy Leader Yuan?" "No, it was a few ordinary people from the construction site who sent you here. If you want to thank them, you can go and ask them." Things didn't develop as he had imagined, which made Lu Tong a little confused. How could it not be Yuan Tianxing? He had clearly attacked when the other party was about to walk over. When the other party passed by, they would definitely see him. But why did the nurse say that the migrant workers from the construction site had sent him here? At that time, besides Yuan Tianxing's group of people, there was no one else there. Where did the migrant workers come from? Could it be Yuan Tianxing had clearly saved him, but didn't want to send him here? Instead, he had sent someone to find a migrant worker to send him here? Lu Tong, who was a little confused, thought about it. He didn't believe the nurse's words that the migrant workers had saved him at all. He thought that maybe Yuan Tianxing felt that it was troublesome to send him here, so he found a few migrant workers to send him here. The nurse saw that he was a little dazed and asked, "What's wrong with you? If you're not feeling well, close your eyes and rest." The 2 people in the ward didn't notice that there was a figure leaning against the wall outside the door and listening to their conversation. Then, the figure turned around and left silently. Long Qingying returned to the room and looked at Lin Wenwen, who was sitting on the sofa. She said, "He looks very surprised." Lin Wenwen sneered, and a trace of disdain flashed across her quiet and beautiful face. She said, "He must be surprised. The plot didn't go the way he expected. If he's not surprised now, he'll probably vomit blood in anger." Lu Tong, who had been lying in the hospital for 2 days, was discharged again. According to the nurse's words, he went to the construction site to find the person who had saved him. However, as soon as he approached, the people at the construction site saw him. "Hey, Lu Tong, why are you here? If your head is injured, you should go back and rest. Why are you running around? What if something happens again?" The people at the construction site looked at Lu Tong, whose head was wrapped in gauze, and said disapprovingly, I want to ask who saved me. I want to thank him." Lu Tong's face was pale, but there was an expression of determination. He looked so weak but there was also a hint of determination. The workers at the construction site felt sorry for him, and someone immediately answered his question. "Oh, it's Hua and the others. They passed by the cafeteria not far away and were shocked to see you lying on the ground on the way. When they ran over, they saw that your head was bleeding, so they rushed you to the hospital. By the way, Hua and the others are over there. You should go over." "Yeah. Did Lu Tong offend someone? How'd he get knocked out?" Lu Tong's expression darkened when he heard their words. When he went to find Hua and the others and confirmed that it was true, he felt terrible. He didn't believe the nurse's words at first, but he didn't expect everyone here to say the same thing. Obviously, the nurse wasn't lying, and everyone here already knew that he had been knocked out by the roadside. Did that mean that Yuan Tianxing really didn't know that he had fainted? Didn't he notice him? In that case, he had smashed himself for nothing, and this injury was for nothing? Thinking of this possibility, Lu Tong was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Who on earth ruined his plan? Chapter 8:15. On the other side of China, Xikong Chun had been pressured by Mo Yin during this period of time. Now, that Mo Yin, the zombie queen, was gone. He could focus on killing the rank 2 kings. In a one-on-one battle, a rank 7 zombie king was not a match for a rank 8 metahuman. Thus, in the end, no matter if it was Xikong Chen's side, Lan Lu's, or Wu Qingyue's side, the rank 2 kings were all killed. After returning to the base, Xikong Chun immediately ordered everyone to attack the zombie horde. He even took out the zombie antidote and released it, and began to clear large swathes of these mindless, ordinary zombies. However, due to their numbers, it would take a long time for them to completely clear them out. At the very least, the danger of China's destruction had been resolved. Thus, although there were many ordinary zombies, they did not feel too much pressure. The only thing that made Xikong Chun unhappy was Gao Haoyun's sudden disappearance. No matter how he searched, he could not find any traces of this person. Because Gao Haoyun harbored ill intentions towards Lin Xiao, he had hidden his tracks when he sneaked into her room. Thus, when Lin Xiao brought him into the space and killed him, all traces of him disappeared. Now that the zombie emperor has retreated and the rank 2 kings have been killed, there is nothing left for us to do. Then there's nothing left for us to do. Leader C, remember your promise. In the end, Xikong Chun, Lan Lu, Wu Qingyue, and the rest gathered for a discussion. Lan Lu and Wu Qingyue expressed that there was nothing left for them to do and were prepared to return. The agreement has already been signed. We will not renege on it. Xikong Chun nodded and said expressionlessly, Huaxia Base, Qingshan Base, Ocean City Base, and All Living Base signed an agreement together. After Huaxia had recovered, they would send the other 3 bases the required resources or weapons within 3 years, according to the conditions of the agreement. China had been besieged for so many days, but due to the zombie horde being blocked outside the city, it did not affect the inside of the city much. Other than the huge consumption of weapons and resources, the casualties of the soldiers were also high. Fortunately, China had a large population, so the death of tens of thousands of people did not affect the overall situation. However, the number of people that were injured was not small, causing the medical center to be in a mess, causing a huge consumption of medical resources. Even in a situation like the Black Dragon base, given enough time, they could slowly recover. Therefore, China's recovery time was even shorter. Lan Lu was the first to leave with Lei Cheng, Yi Yingyue, and the others. Wu Qingyue also indicated that he would leave as soon as possible. Lin Xiao waited for so many days, but there was no news from Lin Kuei. She felt that something must have gone wrong on his side. He probably couldn't find Ling Jing. He guessed that Lin Kuei wouldn't come back so soon without finding Ling Jing, so he prepared to return to the base first. Hence, how Lin Xiao came to the Huaxia base was how he went back. Of course, Wu Qingyue still followed her back to High City. Although Wu Qingyue had been keeping a distance from her in Huaxia, he did not chase after her so closely. However, after arriving at his base, he couldn't help but want to keep Lin Xiao for a few days. Since we're already here, why don't we go see Lingling? She must have missed you. Wu Qingyue smiled. Under the brim of the hat, his long and beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, but they couldn't hide the starlight shining in his eyes. Under her straight nose, her beautiful lips naturally curved into a gentle arc. There was a hint of expectation hidden in her eyes, but she covered it up with a charming smile. Lin Xiao rolled her eyes in her heart, but on the surface, she just glanced at him lightly and didn't refuse him. Wu Qingyue raised his hand, took off his hat, and handed it to Xiao Liqing, who was behind him. His bangs were a little long, but he pulled them up when he wore the hat. Now that the hat was taken off, his bangs immediately slipped down softly and hung at the end of his delicate right eye. Lin Xiao didn't reject him because she had promised Lingling that she would come here to see her, but she never came. Instead, it was this man who always brought her to his base. Therefore, this time, Lin Xiao could be considered to be fulfilling his promise. She nodded and said, "Let's go." Wu Qingyue's smile immediately deepened, but he didn't notice it himself. Xiao Liqing, who was next to him, felt that his boss's smile was a little silly, so he silently turned his head and didn't look at him. There was still some distance from the plane to Wu Qingyue's home, but fortunately, Xiao Liqing had already sent someone to prepare a car to pick them up. In order to respect Lin Xiao's identity, of course, he also gave her a car. He didn't let her sit in the same car as Wu Qingyue. In a few minutes, they arrived in front of Wu Qingyue's small building. From afar, they saw a little person huddled on the steps of the door. Obviously, Wu Yiweling also knew that her father was coming back, so she ran to the door to sit and wait. Not far from Wu Yiweling stood a woman in a white dress. When they got out of the car in front of the door, Lin Xiao recognized that the woman was Meng Yu, who had been following Wu Qingyue before. Seeing the car appear, Wu Yiweling had already stood up. Her small body was still holding a big ball of gray fur in her arms, and she didn't think it was heavy. As soon as Wu Qingyue got out of the car, he walked towards Wu Yiweling. Looking at her nose that was a little red from the cold, he asked with concern, "Lingling, why don't you stay at home? It's cold outside. Don't come out." Saying that, he picked up the rabbit and rubbed her little face with some heartache. Wu Yiweling hugged the live rabbit with both hands, feeling warm and not feeling anything. Hearing Wu Qingyue's words, she looked at him expressionlessly, then turned her head to look at the person who got out of the car behind. Seeing that it was Lin Xiao, Wu Yiweling immediately let go of her and slid down from Wu Qingyue's arms. Holding the big gray rabbit, she ran towards Lin Xiao, who had just gotten out of the car. Lin Xiao looked at her and smiled slightly, then bent down to pick her up from the ground. Then she walked towards the door of Wu Qingyue's house. "Lingling, good girl, did you miss me?" she asked Wu Yiweling as she walked. Wu Yiweling narrowed her bright eyes and nodded at her. Carrying Wu Yiweling, Lin Xiao walked past Meng Yu, who was standing at the side, and walked into Wu Qingyue's house. Meng Yu looked at Lin Xiao with a complicated look in her eyes. Without saying anything, she quietly followed behind. In the past, apart from Wu Qingyue and herself, no one was allowed to get close to Wu Yiweling, and no one was allowed to touch her. Now seeing Wu Yiweling's increasingly cheerful personality and her act of rushing towards Lin Xiao as soon as she saw him, Meng Yu was still a little jealous. But in her heart, she was still a little jealous. But fortunately, she had already given up on Wu Qingyue and had long thrown away the fantasy in her mind. She was starting to see things rationally. Otherwise, such a scene would definitely make her jealous into hate. Chapter 816. As long as that female zombie was present, Wu Yiweling didn't want this daddy. Wu Qingyue was used to it. He invited Lin Xiao into the living room and sat down. Wu Qingyue looked at her beautiful face and asked, "The zombie king is with you?" Lin Xiao sat on the sofa, taking off her hat and handing it to Shun Yuzhen. She casually tucked her hair behind her shoulders and looked at him indifferently, with Wu Yiweling in her lap. "Do you have a problem with that?" Lin Xiao asked. She knew that although she could hide her actions from Xikong Chun and Lan Lu, who didn't know her well, The man in front of her could clearly tell that she had done it. What problem could I have? I just want to remind you that you killed Gao Haoyan. Even though you said that you helped him take revenge, it's not a big deal. But if he's so stubborn that he wants revenge, then you'll have to be careful. Wu Qingyue smiled. He could see that Lin Xiao had taken Mo Yin away to save his life. She didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want his level 8 zombie core. Lin Xiao looked at him, surprised. How did you know I wanted to kill him? This man could actually guess some of her thoughts, which really surprised Lin Xiao. Wu Qingyue shrugged, looked at her, and said, if you wanted his zombie core, you wouldn't have saved that female zombie. Lin Xiao looked at him quietly, not speaking. After a while, she said, he already knows I killed Gao Haoyan. To him, death is death. It doesn't matter. On the other side, Skyfire Base's leaders had been observing the situation. They didn't move to help, but they didn't leave either. You say that woman's discipline is poison? Poison mist? Gu Yikong, a thin man, listened to his subordinate's report. The only thing he was interested in was the female leader's discipline. Yes, I heard her discipline is pretty strong. Once a large amount of black fog spreads out, any zombies that are covered by the black fog will all turn into water. Deputy Leader Su Chamu nodded and said, is she gone? Gu Yikong's face was expressionless, but there was a cold glint in his eyes. Su Chamu nodded. Yes, I came with Wu Qingyue and left with him. Since she's gone back, let's take a look at her new base. How the people we sent over there come back. Gu Yikong looked at him and asked faintly. That's right, I sent a group of people over earlier. But I haven't seen him come back. I don't know if something happened to him, or if he didn't come back because he couldn't find any useful information. Su Chamu frowned and nodded. Gu Yikong suddenly raised a cold smile, and his aura became cold. Then let's go and see how many tricks this woman has to build this base. Su Chamu asked him hesitantly, when are we leaving? Gu Yikong now. Everyone in Universal had no idea that Gu Yikong from Skyfire was interested in their base. They did, however, hear some activity from Earthen. After losing the support and control of the Tsangyun base, the Earth Dragon base, which existed in name only, the people in the Earth Dragon base were ready to flee. Apart from the houses, there were no other supplies left. The weather was cold, and there was nothing to eat. Many had already starved to death. Many had already left for Skyfire, Huaxia, and Haicheng. However, not long after those who planned to seek refuge in China's base set off, they received news that China's base was besieged by zombies. They immediately turned around and headed for Haicheng. Those who'd been heading for Haicheng didn't come all the way. They'd split up into several groups and fought their way here. Jian Shengtong, one of the former deputy leaders of the Earth Dragon base, and Xia Yushin, the leader of the Rain God Corps hunting group, were persecuted after the Earth Dragon base was dominated by the Hidden Cloud City base. Later, in order to save the women who'd been sent to Hades as prostitutes, they were killed by the Earth Dragon base and Tsangyun base. In the end, Jian Shengtong and Xia Yushin led less than 5,000 men to protect the 900 women they'd saved and escaped. But for the sake of these women, they were chased by the Tsangyun base and the Earth Dragon base. They fled in a panic towards Haicheng. In the end, as they were escaping, they were forced to take a big detour. They missed the direction of Hai City and fled in the direction of Hangzhou. Later, they heard that a new base was being built here, so Jian Shengtong and Xia Yushin agreed to come here. In response to this information, Yuan Tianxing immediately notified Lin Feng, Chen Yuding, Qiu Lili, and Elmar to discuss it. If the people from the Earth Dragon want to come, will the leader agree to accept them? Lin Feng frowned and looked at Yuan Tianxing inquiringly. Yuan Tianxing's expression was calm. He looked at the intelligence report and the names of the leaders of the two sides and said, the one coming for us is Jian Shengtong. Seeing that he didn't participate in the attack on the Netherworld King's base, we can let him bring people in. Plus, he saved the women who belonged to Hades. I don't think the leader will refuse. After all, she said before that there will be more and more people in our base in the future. She has already revealed that in addition to the survivors of Hades, there will also be people from other bases. Lin Feng and the others nodded. Yuan Tianxing, Lin Feng, and the other three men were the only ones discussing. Cho Lily and Elmar were just there to listen and didn't have much to say. He called the two of them over because he respected their current status and their strength. In that case, why don't we send someone to meet them in advance? After all, they have a lot of people now, and there are many injured and women. Also, they have to pass through the Westlake district where the zombies are gathered. If we don't send someone, I'm afraid they won't be able to pass. Lin Feng said and looked at Cho Lily and Elmar. His meaning was clear. Cho Lily and Elmar looked at each other. Elmar thought for a moment and said, "What about the group of people chasing after them? Should we kill them?" Anyway, they weren't good people, and they were from Earth Dragon Base and Songyun Base. Thinking that Lin Xiao's base was destroyed by the people from these two bases, Cho Lily and Elmar felt a trace of killing intent. After thinking about it, we can't expose the strength of our base and your situation for the time being. Let's not bother about them. Just bring them back smoothly. Yuan Tianqing thought for a moment and said, "All right then." Elmar shrugged and put aside the killing intent in her heart. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.